media capital of the world.
To participate in the general public comment period, please call now at 818-238-3335. Members of the public may speak for up to 3 minutes dependent upon the number of speakers.
Good evening and welcome to a Burbank City Council joint meeting with Successor Agency, Housing Authority, and Parking Authority on Tuesday, May 17th. Would you please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the flag salute? Dear Lord, please watch over us, protect our families, and protect all the residents of the city of Burbank. Thank you, Lord. Please place your right hand over your heart, and let's repeat our pledge to our great flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please conduct the roll.
Thank you. Councilmember Frutos.
Happy to be here. Good evening.
Good evening. Councilmember Schultz. Councilmember Springer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Anthony.
Present.
Mayor Talamantes.
Present.
Thank you. Noting the absence of Councilmember Schultz. Thank you.
Councilmember Schultz is in quarantine right now, so that's why he's not here tonight. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. We would like to advise the community that there will be 6 periods of public comment tonight. Members of the public may comment in person or by telephone during the general public comment period and during the public hearing public comment period. That's a tongue twister. Public comment for the reports to council will be taken in person only. The first period is for general public comment on any matter concerning city business and or any agenda item except a public hearing. If you would like to participate in general public comment over the phone, please call now at 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. The second and third public comment periods are for public comment on this evening's 2 public hearings. For public comment by telephone on the public hearings, we kindly ask that you call 818-238-3335. After the general public comment period has closed and when the public hearing begins. Additional in-person only public comment period will be available after each report to council. Before we continue the meeting, I would like to have a moment of silence for the victims of this past weekend's shootings in the cities of Buffalo, New York, and Laguna Woods, California. The communities of Buffalo and Laguna Woods are in our thoughts and prayers during this heartbreaking time. Thank you. We have 3 announcements this evening.
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties, Mayor, so we'll give it a second.
Okay.
See if we can figure it out.
Yeah, I'll just read the,
If not, we'll read them.
they're trying to get it, come on. Anyway, the three announcements, one of them is about board, commission, and committee vacancies. The other one is transportation commission vacancy, and the third one is the launch of a community circles is being launched by Burbank Public Library. Go to our website for more information. We have 4 council presentations on the agenda this evening. That's me, I guess, right? The first presentation is a proclamation declaring May 16th to the 21st, 2022 as Public Works Week in the city of Burbank. Joining us this evening to accept the proclamation is Mr. Ken Berkman. Oh, wow. Public Works Director. Mr. Berkman. There we go. Can you help me out and read some of those whereases?
Yeah? I'll do anything for you.
Go ahead.
All right. Additional part of the speech. I love it. So hello, everybody. Ken Berkman, Public Works Director. National Public Works Week. Whereas public works services provided in our community are a vital part of our citizens' everyday lives. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is important to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs, such as the operation and maintenance of wastewater systems, streets, buildings, traffic signals, vehicles and equipment, solid waste collection and disposal, pollution prevention, parking management, graffiti abatement, the planning, design, and construction of capital improvement projects, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff the Public Works Department is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform, now therefore,
I, Jesse Talamontes, Mayor of the City of Burbank, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week in the City of Burbank, and call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which Public Works employees make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Signed the 17th day, May 2022, Jesse Talamontes. Excellent job, by the way.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Sounded like you wrote it.
Yeah, and if I may, as if I haven't said enough, council members, thank you. And Honorable Mayor, it's great to be here, and thank you for this recognition. I'm proud to accept this proclamation for the department, which is comprised of staff who are even more proud to provide their services to the city's residents, businesses, and visitors. And what a variety of services we do provide, as you heard in the whereases. We design, construct, operate, and maintain all of our streets, sidewalks, traffic signals, sewers, storm drains, as well as our buildings, vehicles, and equipment. So staff from all departments can deliver their services to the best of their capabilities to everyone in the city, including police and fire, with whom we are very proud to assist and partner as first responders. And there's so much more that Public Works does behind the scenes to help make Burbank an outstanding city that it is. But for tonight and for National Public Works Week, please know that we are always here at your service, whether you know it or not. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. You want to introduce your colleague?
Sure. Starting here, Mr. Steve Walker, Assistant Director over Wastewater Systems. Assistant Director Myron Sarkeesian over Fleet and Building. Chief Assistant Director Dan Rinn, City Engineer. And Mr. John Molinar, Assistant Director over Streets and Sanitation. And I didn't see you sneak in there, Mr. Hoon Han, Capital Projects Program Manager. All great leaders of our team, and I appreciate them being here. And to everybody watching, all of Public Works, thanks for your help.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Another round of applause, please. The second presentation is a proclamation declaring May 22nd, 2022 as Harvey Milk Day in the city of Burbank. Joining us this evening to accept the proclamation is Mr. Mike Chapman, past president and longtime board member of the Burbank Human Relations Council. Welcome. Good evening, Mayor. Let me get the proclamation right here. Would you do me a favor to read a couple of whereases?
Sure.
There you go, sir.
Alrighty. Harvey Milk Day. Whereas Harvey Bernard Milk was born on May 22nd, 1930 in Woodmere, New York, graduated from the University of Albany in New York in 1951, and thereafter served a short time in the United States Navy. And whereas in 1972, Harvey Milk moved to San Francisco and opened a camera shop called the Castro Camera, and soon emerged as a community leader, founding the Castro Valley Association of Merchants and eventually known as the mayor of Castro Street. And whereas he was elected to the Board of Supervisors of the City and County of San Francisco in 1977, being the first time in the history of the United States that an openly gay man was elected to a prominent office, political office. And whereas Harvey Milk was successful in forging coalitions with San Francisco's other minority leaders, and his message was one of unity against oppression in all forms. And whereas on November 10th, 1978, Harvey Milk was shot and killed in a daytime political assassination that included San Francisco's Mayor George Moscone. And whereas in accordance with the code of the state of California, is this your turn? I think we'll finish that one. May 22nd shall be proclaimed Harvey Milk Day for the state of California.
Now therefore, I, Jesse Talamontes, Mayor of the City of Burbank, do hereby proclaim May 22nd, 2022 as Harvey Milk Day in recognition of Harvey Milk's life as an example of triumph of nonviolent social change, the fight for equal rights for minorities, and the personal price of political courage. Signed the 17th day of May, 2022, Jesse Talamontes, Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. Let's get rid of that for just a moment.
There we go. Did you want to complete some of your statements there?
Sure. We'll set that there for just a moment. I want to thank you and the city council members. On behalf of the Burbank Human Relations Council and the gay and lesbian members of the Burbank community, we thank you for this proclamation. Harvey Milk was a minority member who, rather than standing safely on the sidelines, became actively engaged in his local government. He showed it was possible for minority members to make a positive impact on the entire community. Harvey Milk had a varied and interesting career. He graduated from New York State College of Teachers with a mathematics degree. He served as a chief petty officer in the Navy during the Korean War. He worked with Barry Goldwater's campaign in 1964. He was also a New York financial analyst. He actively protested the Vietnam War. He was an assistant on the productions of Jesus Christ Superstar and Lenny in New York. He owned a camera shop in the Castro, which we mentioned there, and he fought to reduce taxes on small businesses. He co-founded the Castro Village Association of Gay Business Owners and also launched the Castro Street Fair in 1974. He also forged an alliance with the Teamsters, supporting a boycott of Coors beer. And he ran for several offices, including California State Assembly. He ran several times for the seat of the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, and then finally, in 1977, he won the seat on the Board of Supervisors. In 1978, he was a leading voice against Prop 6, which would have banned gay teachers from teaching in public schools. He also spearheaded a bill to ban discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations. In November 1978, Harvey Milk was assassinated in his City Hall office. The assassin, Dan White, unbelievably served less than 5 years in prison for killing both Harvey Milk and Mayor Moscone. White's trial was dubbed the Twinkie defense. It was suggested that White had a sugar imbalance in his diet that has affected his ability to restrain himself from pulling the trigger. Years later, the state of California designated May 22nd, which is Harvey Milk's birthday, to be Harvey Milk Day. He is primarily remembered for his activism in gay issues and equal rights. And I've said this before, but I want to say it again because it's really meaningful to us. This proclamation speaks highly of our Burbank community and of our Burbank's leadership. It represents the weaving together of different threads in our community into a strong social fabric. We truly appreciate this proclamation, sir. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. The next presentation is a proclamation declaring May 15th to the 21st, 2022 as Police Week in the city of Burbank. It is my honor to present this proclamation to Burbank Police Chief Mike Albanese.
Do we have whereas?
Yes, we do have several whereases. Would you like to take, you want to spread it around?
I'm going to spread the whereases around because I'm going to use the younger eyes. So, Nicole.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
All right, the City of Burbank Proclamation National Police Week for May 15th to the 21st of 2022. Whereas, in 1962, President John F. Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as National Police Week. And whereas,
Okay. National Police Week is dedicated to honoring America's law enforcement community and give recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for safety and protection of others. And whereas, Captain.
Law enforcement officers strive to maintain a safe environment for all, often while facing significant challenges and dangers, and our community recognizes the important work and sacrifice officers make each day to protect the city of Burbank. And whereas, Sergeant Feckety, Public Information Officer, where do we leave off?
Whereas all members of our police department recognize their duty to service the community by safeguarding life and property, by protecting community members against violence or disorder, and
the men and women of the City of Burbank Police Department perform their duties with compassion, professionalism, and dedication, providing a vital public service to our community, safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of the citizens of the city.
That's wrong. That is wrong. that is wrong.
Now, therefore, I, Jesse Talamantes, Mayor of the City of Burbank, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2022, as National Police Week in the City of Burbank. The Council of the City of Burbank recognizes and honors the law enforcement personnel whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Signed the 17th day of May, 2022. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you. On behalf of the department, I accept this, and I want to introduce some of your officers that serve the city of Burbank. So we have Adam Cornelius, Officer Hosepian, Officer Koblenz, Officer Marino, Officer Sudbrook, and Sergeant Feckety. So for perspective on this is what President Kennedy wanted to do was have one day a year where folks recognize the sacrifices that officers have made. So on May 15th, it's a very solemn day for officers because that is the day that officers' names are read at Washington, D.C. of the officers that have died or been killed in the line of duty. Most of us have been there for those ceremonies, and it is it's very powerful because everybody gathers. We know why we're there, but we also celebrate what we do. I remind folks we're open 24/7. We never close. These folks are here and have been through the good times and the bad times, and having a time and a moment to be recognized is very important for this organization. So I thank the mayor, I thank the city council, and we will see you next May 15th.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Photo opportunity. Excellent job on the whereases. Chief, can they be available every Tuesday night? They did an excellent job, by the way. Next is a presentation of the California Park and Recreation Society Best of the Best 2021 Awards Program to the City of Burbank Parks and Recreation Department. I welcome Doug Grove, President-elect of the California Park and Recreation Society, to present the awards. Mr. Grove, welcome. Welcome to Burbank.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you, Mayor. I'm excited to be here to represent CPRS to present these awards. I'd like to call on Barry Gassau, Park Board Chair, to come forward and accept the awards. So a few professions impact the community or touch as many lives as park and recreation, although I will say the police would lead that one. The California Park and Recreation Society Annual Awards celebrate outstanding examples of quality facility and park design, programming accomplishments, effective communications, community leadership, and professional successes that take place daily in our profession. Through our 5 award categories, we highlight the people, places, spaces, programs, and stories that make communities special. The 5 main categories are Creating Community Awards of Excellence, Excellence in Design, Facility Design, Excellence in Design Park Planning, Marketing and Communications Awards of Excellence, and Professional and Service Awards. In 2021, we had 97 nominations and 40 awards were presented. A little bit about these awards. These are one-of-a-kind art pieces were handcrafted by an LA-based nonprofit called Piece by Piece. At Piece by Piece, people who are low income and or previously unhoused are invited in to learn mosaic art form, then given the opportunity to share their craft by making pieces like this. Piece by Piece also assists artists in starting their own businesses. CPRS is proud to offer these unique awards to our award winners while also helping a sister nonprofit and the community as a whole. See, I typed mine really big. So I have to have my glasses. So the first award is in Marketing and Communications marketing campaign for Plant for a Greener Burbank. The City of Burbank's Parks and Recreation Marketing Section was selected as the recipient of the Marketing and Communication Award of Excellence. The Plant for a Greener Burbank marketing campaign was instrumental in the collaborative campaign to plant over 650 trees for the year in 2021. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you so much for that award. I'd like to call up Cindy Acune and Tony Rodriguez.
This goes to them.
This goes to them.
Congratulations. We'll take a picture.
The second award is for Creating Community Health and Wellness category for Project Hope, helping others prosper every day. The Burbank Volunteer Program and the Adults 55 Plus sections were selected as the recipient of the Creating Community Award of Excellence for Project Hope's Helping Others Prosper Every Day campaign. Essential services provided during the COVID-19 pandemic by Project Hope to older adults included shopping deliveries, prescription pickups, and post office errands. Despite having to close facilities due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Jocelyn Adult Center staff found ways to keep the older adult community safe and connected. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call up Erin Barrows and Kim Freed to accept this award.
Congratulations. Our third award is the Rising Star Award, and it was given by our CPRS Aquatics section. We have 7 different sections in CPRS for various parts of park recreation, and aquatics is one of those. Michael Singanate, Aquatics Coordinator, is the recipient of the CPRS Aquatics Section Rising Star Award. This award recognizes the contributions of those rising stars who work on behalf of the CPRS Aquatics Section to advance the profession and who strengthen and support the section as a professional organization. This award was the result of Michael's resilience, dedication, and innovation during the COVID-19 pandemic. Michael successfully prepared a state grant application for funding the renovation of the Cambridge Pool. He adapted aquatic programming to safely operate throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and developed an effective recruitment strategy to maintain staffing resources and program levels to meet community needs. Due in great part to Michael's efforts, Burbank's aquatics facilities were the first to reopen to the public in Los Angeles County after the initial COVID-19 pandemic shutdown. Congratulations, Michael.
So, thank you, Doug Grove, for being here from CPRS and Mayor Talamontes and the City Council, of course. As Chair of the Parks and Recreation Boards, with great pleasure this evening to celebrate the achievements of the Parks and Recreation Department. The department continues to pride itself in providing well-maintained recreational facilities and developing programs to meet the recreational, cultural, and social needs of the Burbank community. The Best of the Best awards are a reflection of the outstanding services that the department provides. On a personal note, I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with this department for over 10 years, and this staff, I marvel at their ability, their desire to serve the community, their drive to be excellent. Every single one. Thank you.
You know, I just want to add as well that before I got elected to council, I spent 9 years on the Parks, Recreation, Community Services Board. So yes, it's always done excellent job. Thank you.
Come back.
Oh, well, there might be down the road.
Have an opening again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Invited me back already? Really? Okay, let's go. I've been told that the announcements are ready to roll, so let's roll them.
The following are announcements for May 17th, 2022. The City Clerk's Office is currently accepting applications for a total of 30 upcoming vacancies on the following Board, Commission, and Committee: Art in Public Places Committee, Board of Building and Fire Code Appeals, Board of Library Trustees, Burbank Water and Power Board, Civil Service Board, Community Development Goals Committee, Heritage Commission, Landlord Tenant Commission, and Senior Citizen Board. The deadline to submit an application is Wednesday, June 1st at 5 p.m. If interested, apply online at burbankca.gov/BCC application. Vaccination proof or medical religious exemption will be required of all applicants. For more information, please contact the Burbank City Clerk's Office at 818-238-5851 or email cityclerks@burbankca.gov. The Burbank City Clerk's Office is accepting applications for one vacancy on the Transportation Commission for an unexpired term ending July 31st, 2023. The deadline to submit an application is Friday, June 3rd at 5 p.m. If interested, apply online at burbankca.gov BCC application. Vaccination proof or medical religious exemption will be required of all applicants. For more information, please contact the Burbank City Clerk's office at 818-238-5851 or email cityclerks@burbankca.gov. The Burbank Public Library, in partnership with the Burbank Human Relations Council and the Burbank YMCA, present Community Circles, where members of the Burbank community will gather each month to learn, share, and explore issues of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Each facilitated conversation will highlight underrepresented voices and identities, followed by sharing of personal reflections and a supportive exploration of how individuals and the community can connect, embrace differences, and make sure Burbank is welcoming. The first meeting will be held at the Buena Vista Branch Library at 300 North Buena Vista Street from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Thursday, May 19th. Upcoming monthly meetings will alternate between the Buena Vista Branch Library and the Burbank YMCA Social Impact Center. To register, please visit burbanklibrary.org/events. This concludes the announcements for this evening.
Assistant City Manager Wilkie, do you have anything to report?
Mayor Talamantes, no, we do not have anything to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Assistant City Attorney O, will you please report on closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, City Council met in closed session on existing litigation. It also met to give directions to City's labor negotiator, Betsy McClinton, in her negotiations with the Burbank Management Association. No reportable action.
Thank you. Now is the time for general public comment. For members of the public who are here in person and wish to speak, please present a completed yellow general public comment card to the city clerk, just like this one. Any person speaking during general public comment may address the council on any matter concerning city business except the public hearings. If you speak to the public hearing item, your comments will not be included in the public hearing record. Persons may choose to use the first period of public comment to address an agendized report, but will not be able to speak on that item following this segment. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to promote fairness, please stay within your maximum allotted time of 3 minutes. A timer is available on the podium to help the speaker keep track of how much time is left. I encourage you to state your name when speaking at the podium to assist the city clerk with the minutes. For those wishing to call in during the general public comment period, please call now at 818-238-3335. Once again, it's 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. I've got 2 cards here. The first card is Jenny Deal. You have 3 minutes, Jenny. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody. Good evening, Mayor. Is this on? Yes, it's on. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. It's nice to see everybody this evening. My name is Jenny Deal. I humbly ask for your vote. I am running for the Sustainable Burbank Commission. And a little bit about me, I have been a Burbank resident for over 30 years. I have raised my family here in the city of Burbank and worked in the city of Burbank. I have sat on many, many different committees in the city of Burbank. I was on the Magnolia Park Merchant Board for over 6 years. I have done events in the city of Burbank. I have done work in the schools. I have done numerous volunteer hours, probably thousands of hours volunteering in the city of Burbank. This is a city I love. This is a city I want to represent. And it would be my honor to serve in this capacity. So once again, I humbly ask for your vote in this capacity. And I thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Next speaker is Michael Matsuda. Welcome.
Greetings, Mayor Talamantes, City Council. Thank you. I have two topics. I'll make them real quick. I'm here on behalf of Jenny Deal on her position for Sustainable Burbank Commission. My name again is Michael Matsuda. I'm president and founder of the Martial Arts History Museum here in Burbank. I have been honored to know Jenny for about 8 years, maybe a little bit longer. And at the museum, we hold a lot of events, from honor days to movie screenings to seminars, workshops, and more. And even our huge Dragon Fest convention, which brings in over 2,000 people, Jenny has been the coordinator and planner for nearly all of these. She's extremely organized, extremely detailed, and you know, once you put an assignment in Jenny's hands, you don't even have to think about it. She gets it done. She has also been the coordinator of many of Magnolia Park events as well for the city of Burbank. It's important to find people with great integrity. That's what you want in any job, and Jenny Deal has that. If I had to pick someone in my entire lifetime who I'd want to work with, it would be Jenny Deal, so I hope you'll vote for her. Second topic. As part of the Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, the Martial Arts History Museum will host a special awareness event designed specifically to confront the escalation of Asian hate in America. On May 19th, the museum will be handing out 1,000 free finger stun devices to the Asian American community at 12 noon at 3 p.m. For more than a year, attacks against Asians, both men and women, have continued to rise at an alarming pace. Many have suffered from both verbal and especially violent physical occurrences. To combat this ongoing violence, the Martial Arts History Museum will not only provide the free stun devices, but a training course on the premises as well. With the promotional assistance of Eric the Trainer and broadcaster Jay Menez, the stun device giveaway will have a red carpet event filled with a variety of film and television stars in their effort to stand against Asian hate and support the community. I thank you all very much.
Thank you. We have completed in-person public comment. For callers, please remember to lower the volume on your TV or computer and take your phone off speaker when you deliver public comment. Madam City Clerk, do we have any callers online?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and we're ready to go.
Thank you. Welcome.
Our first caller is Cynthia Peace.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Talamantes, City Council members, and all city staff. As a founding member of the Burbank Cultural Arts Commission, first I want to express my sincere appreciation for your consideration and funding and future support of the Burbank artists, art organizations, and all art-related events. Your support of the proposed budget funding for the cultural arts in all the forums has so many important benefits. First is the economic growth. Engaging in public art generates excitement and ultimately leads to increased foot traffic, which benefits surrounding businesses, and we all know this is the time that we need that. All right, our cultural understanding. This public art expression reflects our community and its surroundings, okay? As part of our community, it attracts people to its uniqueness. Realizing this helps express a community's values and creates an elevated sense of awareness for community members and visitors. Our identity. When our community members see themselves reflected in social spaces, they feel a sense of respect, ultimately allowing for people to identify with the place they are from, where they live in, and are visiting. And lastly, and most importantly, especially for what's going on in the world today, the sense of belonging. Art brings all of us together. Programming in the art in public places, and making it accessible to everyone inspires engagement and a feeling of belonging to our community. And our cultural identity is really not defined by television studios or movie studios. It is defined by the positive relationships demonstrated throughout the city. So I thank you for all you do, and I hope that you will remember this all through the rest of the public comments and reports when it comes time to talk about the funding for the city. And I know that we will make, through the expertise of our staff, we will make the best use of it and to bring our community together in friendship and in love. Thank you guys for all you do, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Our next caller is Leah Harrison.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Talamantes, the honorable city council members. It's so great to be with you this evening. My name is Leah Harrison. I am chair of the Burbank Cultural Arts Commission. First of all, I want to give a heartfelt congratulations to the Parks and Recreation for their Excellence Awards. We couldn't be in more agreement that we are so lucky to have all of them with us in this city. I am calling in support of tonight's agenda item number 12 and the discussion to increase cultural arts funding as proposed by Mayor Talamantes. The additional funding proceeds would be a tremendous support for artistic, creative, and inspirational communities here in Burbank. It would help to increase the breadth and depth of our 3 proposed goals that we've set this year by the staff at Parks and Rec, the Cultural Arts Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Board. We think we have really good proposals to help some of the healing for our artistic community and turn the tide for those groups and individuals that have been tremendously hit by the negative impacts that the pandemic has hit artists economically. I want to thank the Parks and Recreation for their continued advocacy of our community's creative and emotional well-being through all of their arts programs. You at the City Council for your tremendous work in creating a better quality of life for all of the citizens in Burbank, and Mayor Talamantes for his tirelessly championing for the expansion of our city's creative infrastructure. You are all greatly appreciated, and we would really, really appreciate these additional fundings to go through. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any callers in queue, so we can go ahead and close the public comment period.
There being no further public comment, I now declare the public comment period closed. Now is the time for a brief response from City Council, City Manager, and/or the Chief Assistant City Attorney. Colleagues? Anyone? No? Okay. Assistant City Manager, no comment?
No comment. I mean, of course, thank you to those who came to let us know about their wanting to be on the Sustainable Commission, as well as the Burbank Cultural Arts Commission members that called to support the funds for that. And I just want to say it was really great to have so many wonderful things happening tonight in the room, from Harvey Milk to the Police Week to our Parks and Rec staff. So it's nice to be able to recognize important people and important things going on in our community. So thank you.
And, not only recognize, but to include them in the presentations. Councilmember Springer.
Yes, I would like to thank Ms. Deal, Mr. Matsuda, Ms. Harrison, and Ms. Peace for participating in public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on. Let's see, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor, should I read the consent for the records?
That would be excellent. Good
Thank you.
suggestion, Madam City Clerk.
It's helping out. Thank you. Okay, consent calendar. Item number 1 is City Council minutes for the month of April 26th and the month of May 3rd and the dark meeting of May 10th. Successor agency minutes, and that's for April 26th and May 3rd. Item 3 is housing minutes, and that's for April 26th and May 3rd. Parking authority minutes for April 26th and May 3rd. Item 5, approval of National Museum of United States Air Force Community Static Display Loan Program 2022 loan agreement for continued display of an F-104D Starfighter aircraft at George Isaiah Park. Item 6, adoption of a resolution approving the Golden State substation rebuilt design build contract with Aubrey Selvi Enterprise, Inc., delegation of authority to approve plans and amendment to fiscal year 2021-22 budget to appropriate funds for the construction of the Golden State Substation rebuild. Item number 7, acceptance of donation of $20,000 from the estate of Marlene F. Wagoner for the expense supporting operation of the animal shelter and amending the fiscal year 2021-22 budget by appropriating funds. And last item is adoption of resolution approving the establishment of the salary for the classification of legal assistant and adoption of resolution approving the citywide salary schedule. That conclude the items.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move the consent forward.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. I just want to make a comment on item number 5. It's that static display. If you haven't gone by George Isay Park, it's that, what is it called? 109?
F-104
Starfighter aircraft.
Aircraft, yeah.
I mean, it's been there several years. There's been a discussion about repainting it, same colors, because the Air Force has a criteria that you can't change the colors, obviously. That's an Air Force plane. But it was donated by Lockheed. And at the time that it was donated to Burbank, the president of Lockheed was here at George Isay Park to present it to Burbank. So it's a big deal. You know, it was a very big deal when it was given to the city, and it's a big deal moving forward. So I just want to make sure that the residents, if you have some time, go by there and take a look at it. Councilmember? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a comment on item number 7, short comment, sir. I would like to personally extend a tremendous thank you to the estate of Marlene F. Wagner for the kind donation of $20,000 to help out supporting the operations at the animal shelter. Thank you very much, again, to the estate of Marlene F. Wagner from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Yes, definitely to the Marlene Wagner family.
I too would like to express appreciation for Marlene Wagner bequeathing such a generous donation to the Burbank Animal Shelter. Very generous.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a nice chunk of money to our animal shelter. And for those who don't know, the F-104 Starfighter was built in the 1950s by Lockheed right here in Burbank. It was revolutionary. They put the wings way farther back on the plane so that it could hit supersonic speeds. So it could fly lower and faster than anything they've seen before, and they called it the Starfighter. They thought it was whizzing past like a spaceship. They had to discontinue it, though, because it had to land at those high speeds, too, and that was problematic. So I'm glad we got one.
Definitely.
It's my son's favorite park, by the way, because he calls it the Big Blue Jet. So
It's perfect timing for that new movie that's opening up this coming Friday with Tom Cruise. Yeah, Top Gun. Anyway, Madam City Clerk?
Councilmember Fudos?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anthony?
Yes.
Mayor Talamantes?
Yes, thank you very much. This is the time and place for the hearing for project number 22-0001350 concerning the extension of an adopted interim urgency ordinance for 2-unit residential developments and urban lot splits in all single-family residential zones in response to Senate Bill 9 as amended. Before we begin, are there any disclosures relating to this hearing, colleagues? Seeing none, okay. Madam City Clerk, have the notices required by law been given?
Yes, they have.
Thank you. Do we have the complete file of exhibits, correspondence, emails, and other documents?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Has the city received any written communications on this matter, and have they been provided to all city council members?
Yes, you did receive 3 correspondence, and the city council have all of them.
Thank you. Will the representative of the Community Development Department please introduce yourself and summarize the matter for us? Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Talamantes, Vice Mayor Anthony, and members of the council. My name is Xavier Thomas, project planner for the proposed item. Mayor, please have the presentation. Tonight, the City Council will be considering an extension to an adopted interim urgency ordinance that created development controls for 2-unit residential developments and urban lot splits in the city's single-family residential zones, which will allow staff time to study and consider enactment of permanent zoning measures in response to Senate Bill 9. On September 16th, 2021, Governor Newsom signed into law California Housing Opportunity and More Efficiency Act, also known as Senate Bill 9, that went into effect on January 1st, 2022. On April 5th, 2022, City Council adopted an interim urgency ordinance to ensure that the city had in place interim objective development, design, and subdivision standards that would regulate SB 9 projects. The urgency ordinance is set to expire on Friday, May 20th, 2022. This request tonight is to extend the adopted interim urgency ordinance pursuant to California Government Code Section 65858A for an additional 10 months and 15 days. The proposed interim urgency ordinance tonight is an amended version of the adopted urgency ordinance from the one presented at the April 5th, 2022 council meeting. Here are the amendments that have been made to the adopted interim urgency ordinance from April 5th, 2022. These amendments are clarifications to the adopted development standards and serve to add clarity to 2 of the development standards listed in the 2-unit residential development section. First, when a second story is permitted and the upper story step backs are applied, the second floor must be set back a minimum of 15 feet from the rear property line. Second, any 2-unit residential development that would occur in the R1H horsekeeping zone must abide by the existing development standards listed in Burbank Municipal Code Section 10-1-605. At the City Council meeting of April 5th, City Council requested that staff explore additional standards that could be added to alleviate the impacts of future SB 9 projects. These items included any additional development, design, and subdivision standards or controls that can be applied to 2-unit residential developments and urban lot splits, including additional standards that can be applied to the equestrian zone, single-family residential neighborhoods. Second, assessing the feasibility of establishing a development standard that requires all new 2-unit residential developments to be deed-restricted affordable units. And finally, assessing the establishment of fines and/or other penalties on homeowners who violate the signed urban lot split owner occupancy affidavit. Staff is currently in the process of evaluating and analyzing all these items and will bring back possible solutions for the City Council's consideration as a part of a future request for a zone text amendment. If approved, the extension will give staff time to further study those City Council items and any additional objective standards that would assist in mitigating the potential impacts of SB 9 projects in our single-family residential zone neighborhoods. The extension, if granted, would also provide staff time to undertake all the work to prepare a zone text amendment for consideration by the Planning Board and the City Council at a separate public hearing. All the work is expected to be completed during this requested extension period. In conclusion, in compliance with California Government Code Section 65858A, City Council can extend the adopted interim urgency ordinance for an additional 10 months and 15 days. The proposed extension would include amendments to the urgency ordinance that provide clarification to 2 of the objective standards stated in the 2-unit residential development section. In order to further create additional development, design, and subdivision standards for SB 9 projects, along with any additional regulations sought by the City Council, staff is requesting an extension of the adopted interim urgency ordinance with the amendments for an additional 10 months and 15 days. The extension will provide staff the necessary time to prepare a zone text amendment with permanent and comprehensive zoning measures for future consideration by the City Council. At the time of this presentation, there are a total of 2 SB 9 projects that have been currently submitted to staff. This concludes my presentation. City staff is available to answer any questions or clarify any questions that were raised in the actual public correspondence themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing to hear from any persons who wish to speak on this matter. Each person may address the council for up to 3 minutes on this public hearing item only. For members of the public who are here in person, please present a completed salmon public hearing card to the city clerk if you wish to speak. Are there any salmon cards?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have cards, and I'm also being informed that we don't have any callers online, and the lines have been opened.
Okay, then. There being no further public comment, I now declare the public comment period closed. Would the representative of the Community Development Department like to make any further comments or respond to public comment?
Seeing none, no, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Does the council have any questions of staff? Councilmember Frutos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have one question that came from a community member regarding the home ownership. And this community member basically said, the ordinance begins the 3-year residency requirement at the beginning date of the lot split. Is there a possibility that the residency to begin at the end of construction of at least the primary resident of the original seller in cases where the house was demolished?
Real quick point of clarification. Did that go to all
Yes.
council members?
This, yeah, it was
Thank
all,
you.
it was from Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
And I just thought it was a good question.
Yes, it actually is a good question. Thank you for the question, Mr. Frutos. To answer Mr. Hamill's question directly, there is not a possibility to actually begin the urban lot split owner occupancy affidavit at the time of construction per the actual Senate bill itself. It has to begin once the urban lot split has been approved. If I can bring your attention to attachment 5-7 and 5-8, I can actually read it verbatim if you would like.
You know, if you don't mind, just for the benefit of the members of the audience that are watching this, because I thought it was a good question. Thank you, sir.
Let me read it for verbatim. Again, for anyone watching, this is attachment 5. This would be page 5-7 and 5-8. This is G1. A local agency shall require an applicant for an urban lot split to sign an affidavit stating that the applicant intends to occupy one of the housing units as their principal residence for a minimum of 3 years from the date of the approval of the urban lot split. So again, that affidavit itself begins the second that we and staff approve the urban lot split itself.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that. The principal residence, that would be the original house, not the new construction on the new lot split.
Based on staff's understanding, if a lot split commences and they choose to have a primary dwelling and a second primary dwelling, the actual owner themselves can choose which residence they want to live in. That then would become the principal, and then that is the one they have to sign the affidavit, essentially saying that they'll be stating to live within that residence itself.
Okay, so if someone owns a house and they're renting it out, they're not the occupant, and then they go forward with an SB 9 submittal, we approve the lot split, that person doesn't have to move into the one that's currently occupied. They can wait until construction is finished on the new house before they move in, but the time of the 3 years, the clock starts the moment we approve the lot split.
In that situation, if there already is an existing unit on site and they choose to go through an urban lot split, that then becomes their primary residential or the principal residence in this situation.
But what if
So,
they're not living there? What if it's like a rental? They own the property, but they're renting out to somebody.
based on whoever submits for the urban lot split, it has to be the owner themselves, has to sign away that affidavit. So that means they would have to actually live in one of those two principal locations. So let's say it is the owner themselves was the person who went through that process and they're renting it out.
Yeah.
That's the individual who has to live within one of those spaces.
Right, and what I'm saying is, if they have an argument saying, oh, no, I want to leave that rental as it is, I want to live in the new house that I'm building behind it, that's going to be
as in they're choosing to make that the principal location.
Yeah. See what I'm
If
saying?
that is, I kind of see what you're saying. So let me just take a step back. In the event that there is two residents on the actual property itself, and they do an urban lot split to where now there is one new residence on one new lot, one new residential building on another lot, and that owner chooses to just say, I don't want to have the first one as my primary residence, I want to have the second one as my primary residence.
Yeah.
There is no distinction or there's no statement within the actual bill that says they have to only be in the one that they originally were renting in.
Okay.
They just have to be in one of the actual designated locations.
Yeah.
And we here are part of the process for an urban lot split. We would request that they have to choose one or the other. Sure. Then by that point, that would then make it the principal location.
Yeah.
Therefore, they have to then sign the affidavit stating they would stay in that actual residence.
And I think the concern from the resident is that if they chose that route, they had a rental and they wanted to build another house in the back, they're basically using up the construction time, 6 months, 8 months, a year, and letting that eat into their 3-year residency, so that at the end of the day, they really only have to do 2 years of residence because they claimed the new under construction house as their principal residency. You see what I'm saying? How they can sort of finagle that 3 years and whittle it down?
I see what you mean. So in essence, you're trying to see whether or not we at the staff level can essentially make them choose that original single-family house, the one
do we have any
prior to.
Exactly. Do we have anything in the state law that says, okay, if there's already a pre-built house, regardless of who's in there, that's the principal residence, so you got to move in?
We can look into it further, and if so, we can then make that a part of the actual ZTA itself.
Mhm.
I'm not aware, but again, we can bring that back during the ZTA, and we could look into it further.
Yeah, because that's my concern, because the resident is right. If construction takes a year, then really, they're only doing 2 years, so.
See,
Yes, please.
because when you first start out, there's only one residence. The other one's going to be under construction. That's the whole scenario here. I believe that was the basis of your question. The other one is under construction. So if they run into financial difficulties and it takes longer and longer to construct, this residence, they can still rent the front one out, the only residence that's on the property?
Correct. And I believe this is probably one of those things where we'll look into it in terms of the actual urban lot split process. That'll be one of those things that we have to add into the procedural steps, to where at the time that someone applies for an urban lot split, we would then at that point make them designate which one would be the actual principal location. In a situation where they're proposing a second primary dwelling on the other lot, essentially we'll try to see whether or not, again, based upon the law that's here, if we can then make them only choose that first one, so that they are not doing, as you actually stated, essentially waiting out the 3-year period.
Because
and
the
then
first
renting
one's
them
already
out.
built. That's
Correct.
established.
Correct.
The second one hasn't been built.
Correct. So yeah, this is one of those things we'll have to look into to make sure that we're not violating any rules within the actual bill itself, but I take in consideration what it is that you're raising.
Because the loophole I see is, I own my home, I live in my home, I buy a rental house income property, I look at Senate Bill 9 and I say, oh, you know what? I'm gonna build another rental property behind them, and I'm gonna say, oh, I'm gonna move into that one, but it's under construction. Oh, delays, 3 years later, well, my residency's out, build that new construction, now I have 2 rentals, and I never moved from my place.
Right.
So it's basically, this loophole where they're just running out the clock. So, yeah, if there's a way we could make sure that it is a residence, because that's the original intent of the bill, right? To make sure people have a home and they're moving to where they need to go, and maybe they have an additional lot. So, yeah.
Correct. The idea was an anti-displacement portion, and this is one of those actual measures that was added to the bill. But again, we will look into it further.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Springer?
Yeah, so I do have a question about potential displacement of the tenant who might be in the original unit. Would that disqualify the project for SB 9 if it required displacing the tenant?
Well, to take a step back, if the actual tenant if there's been a tenant that's been occupied in the space for 3 years, they're actually ineligible from doing an urban lot split to begin with. So if there actually is a tenant that's there, they're not eligible to do an urban lot split.
Okay, thank you. And where are the proposed SB 9 lot
The
splits?
2 of them are currently in single-family zones right now. Neither of them are urban lot splits. Both of them are just applicants who are requesting to build 2-unit housing developments. Essentially, they're looking to add a second primary dwelling to their existing residents themselves. Neither of them are proposing urban lot splits.
Oh, so it's just an additional.
Correct. Just an additional
unit.
dwelling to their actual lot itself.
Thank you.
Now, is there a fine for violating the affidavit?
At the current moment, that's one of those things that City Council has asked us to look into during the April 5th meeting. That's something that we are actually going to look into as well, to make sure that we're not violating anything that's within the provisions of the bill itself. But yeah, that's one thing that we're actually adding to the list for the actual ZTA itself. That is something that we'll have to have a conversation with the city attorney's office and our code enforcement division in terms of the actual mechanisms themselves that we can implement for individuals who do violate that owner occupancy affidavit. But that is on our list as well.
Okay, I encourage you to have one. Vice Mayor?
This is the first I've heard about the tenant. If there's a tenant for 3 years, you're not allowed to do the lot split. But
Correct.
under the Ellis Act, if the landlord or the owner of the house wanted to move into that residence and kick the tenant out, at that point, could they apply for a lot split?
You're saying in the event that there's a tenant there,
Who's been there
They-
3, 4, 5, 10 years?
the property owner comes back and then lives, and then kicks the tenant out, lives in that residence, and then chooses to do an urban lot split.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, that's kind of a gray area, but in that same event, then that means that that new owner would then be subject to the affidavit. And then now
Right.
we go back to the original scenario where then we're going to try to make them be the principal and make that choose that to be their primary.
Okay.
But again, that may be something else that may be a gray area that we do have to look into.
Okay. And just to follow up on that, I mean, if someone who owned the property, if they want to develop and they want to do that and they want to create more housing, the state, the rent control bill, AB 1394 or whatever isn't there a provision in there that if you evict somebody under the Ellis Act, you have to pay them a moving costs or moving fees or something like that? Like, isn't there some protections under the state? I forget. It's been so long.
I'm not familiar with that, but looks like Ms. McFarland is.
Yes, Simone McFarland, Community Development. Yes, there are protections under there. I can't quote exactly what those are tonight, but there are protections if you want to take your house back to do renovations. There are fees that you will have to pay to have that renter move out.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes, thank you. What's the difference? Why would one choose to do like 2 units on a single lot, not the lot split, but still an SB9 project versus ADUs?
That would be a personal choice up to them, depending on if they have the room on their lot to do so. However, ADUs, as per the actual bill itself, they're viewed in conjunction with ADUs. So again, if someone chooses to do a second primary dwelling unit and an ADU on their lot, they're free to do so. However, one is still going to be subject to, as long as we do not preclude them from doing 800 square feet, if they choose to go above that, then we are going to actually apply FAR standards and lot coverage standards. But to answer the question, anyone can choose to do within the bounds of what the rules require. Someone's allowed to do an ADU and a second primary dwelling unit on their lot itself.
Is the processing time about equal?
No, it is not. So ADUs are still subject to the shot clock requirement. However, SB9 units or a second primary dwelling unit is not. So within that instance, because we essentially have the existing single-family primary standards that would apply to that second primary dwelling unit, that review will probably take a little bit longer than the ADU actual review itself. Now, ideally, we would like them to try to be reviewed simultaneously. But again, one may take a little longer than the other, only because one has to be subject to the shot clock requirement of ADUs, specifically for ADUs.
Okay, thank you. And if there are 2 primary dwelling units on that lot, can each of those houses also have an ADU, or would just one ADU?
No, so you're referring to a junior ADU. So in that instance, a junior ADU can only be constructed within the existing envelope of one of the primary dwelling units. We only allow for one junior ADU per lot, not per dwelling.
Thank you.
And you can have a second ADU, an ADU itself on the lot.
So you could have 2,
Yeah,
so you could have
what-
4 units
yeah.
on that lot.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
You can have one ADU on the lot, one junior ADU, and then 2 primary units.
Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? No? I now declare the public hearing closed, and the council will now deliberate. What is the council's pleasure? Is there a discussion or a motion? Colleagues?
I'd like to tackle the motion unless somebody
Yes.
wants to lead a discussion. A lot of my questions have been answered.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a
Okay.
second. No further discussion? Madam City Clerk?
And my motion, Madam City Clerk, is based upon the recommendation.
Thank you. Councilmember Frutos,
Yes.
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anthony,
Yes.
Mayor Talamantes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 10. This is a time and place for the hearing on the proposed increases to city fees and charges for water, refuse, sewer, and electric services. Before we begin, are there any disclosures relating to this hearing, colleagues? All right, seeing none. Madam City Clerk, have the notices required by law been given?
Yes, they have.
Do we have the complete file of exhibits, correspondence, emails, and other documents?
Yes, you do.
Has the city received any written communications on this matter, and have they been provided to all city council members?
Yes, City Council received a total of 24 correspondence, and you have them all in your files.
Thank you. Are there any written protests received regarding the proposed increase to city fees and charges for water, refuse, and sewer services?
All the correspondence are all included together, so if council wishes that we go through and count the protests, we're happy to do it. They're mostly emails expressing their concern over the rate increase, and some of the emails have been answered by our BWP general manager, and the emails just basically states their concerns over the, the current economy that we're in and the concerns over the increase.
So is there a need to count the protests while we proceed with the hearing?
I'm happy if you want to proceed, we can try to go back and get you a number. They're, as I said, mostly concerns over the increase, so you can count that as a protest.
Vice Mayor?
I think it'd be appropriate to get that number.
Okay, so if you, while you're in the middle of the public hearing and listening to staff, we're happy to count those for you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
May I?
Sure, go ahead.
Madam City Clerk, when you report back on the actual number of protests, can you also, for the record and for the benefit of the members watching this meeting, the public hearing, also state what the law says, the requirement of the amount of protests that have to be for the protest to be effective versus the number that we got?
I'm going to defer that to the city attorney
Okay.
because I can't claim that I know in regards to 218 offhand without researching.
Because I like to make sure that it's in the record so the members of the
Sure.
audience know exactly where the number of protests that we have to have, so the rate increases do not move forward versus what we did receive. So the benefit to the members of the audience that we're working within the law.
Sure. Yeah, and again, there are 24 comments or pieces of email, so I think we should be able to figure that out. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving forward on this. Will the representative of Burbank Water and Power please introduce yourself and summarize the matter for us?
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Miles Collins. I'm the Energy Services and Utility Rates Manager at Burbank Water and Power. I have a brief presentation for you on behalf of Burbank Water and Power and the Burbank Public Works Department. I will be summarizing the proposed utility rate increases for the next fiscal year. Increases to water, sewer, and refuse services are all subject to California Proposition 218. This is a state law that requires that we send mailed notice to all fee payers 45 days in advance of this public hearing, notifying them of the time and place of the hearing, as well as the proposed increases. Staff has met this requirement, and a copy of that notice is attached to the staff report as attachment 2. I want to note that electric service is not subject to California Proposition 218, and there are no special noticing requirements for electric service rate increases. Increases cannot be approved for water, sewer, and refuse services if a majority of fee payers submit written protest. As of May 4th, we had received 9 letters of protest and 1 letter of support. Since that time, additional letters have been received and forwarded to the council.
Let me ask you a question real quick before we move any further. You said the majority of,
The majority of fee payers. So the majority of fee payers would be 26,501 for service.
all right,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. As detailed in the budget presentations on April 26th, staff is proposing a 2% increase for sewer service, 4% increase for refuse service, 9% increase for water service, and 6% increase for electric service. The proposed rate increase for sewer service is 2% for fiscal year 22-23. For the average residential customer, this equates to a monthly increase of 51 cents. There were no increases for sewer service in the previous 2 fiscal years. The proposed increase is needed due to increased charges from the City of Los Angeles for sewage treatment services, capital improvement projects, and labor, chemical, and electrical costs to operate the Burbank Water Reclamation Plant. The proposed rate increase for refuse service is 4%. For the average residential customer, this is an increase of approximately $1.34 per month. The refuse fund had a 2% rate increase in fiscal year 21-22. The proposed increases in refuse collection fees are needed to meet rising operational costs, particularly those associated with new state mandates, and to continue providing comprehensive refuse services that include household trash disposal, green waste recycling, recyclable collection and processing, and bulky item pickups. The proposed rate increases for water is 9% for each customer class: residential, multifamily, and commercial, and recycled water customers. There is some variation in the rate increase between rate components, with fixed per month charges increasing by slightly more than 9% and the volumetric per unit water charges increasing by slightly less than 9%. The increase for water service is necessary to recover the increased costs of purchasing water from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California and to modernize our city's aging infrastructure. This slide shows some impacts of the water rate increase for customers. Water bill impacts will vary by the number of people in a household, the type of landscaping, season, etc. If we use residential water consumption in 2021 as a guide, 25% of monthly bills during the year would show increases of $4.17 or less. Half of water bills would increase by $5.62 or less. 3/4 of water bills would increase by $7.60 or less, and the remaining 1/4 of bills would have increases greater than $7.60. This slide shows a comparison of monthly residential bills for a single-family home using 12,000 gallons per month, which is a moderate amount of water. Burbank is on the bottom with the blue bar, with the orange highlighted portions of the bars representing known rate increases. Even with the proposed rate increase, residents of Burbank continue to pay less per month than those in other parts of California, including in nearby cities such as Glendale, Pasadena, and Los Angeles. The proposed electric rate increase is 6%, applied evenly across all components of the rate for all customer classes. The proposed increase to electric service is necessary to keep up with inflation and to obtain renewable energy, which is more expensive than coal and natural gas. BWP is required to meet the state mandate of 60% renewables by 2030 and 100% carbon neutrality by 2045. These mandates include penalties for not meeting the required goals. The anticipated penalties for missing the 60% renewable goal by 2030 total $147 million. In addition, BWP is aiming to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in its electricity supply and comply with the city's plan to be GHG neutral by 2040. This slide shows the impacts of the electric rate increase for customers. The average monthly usage for customers in apartments and condos in 2021 was 340 kilowatt hours per month, corresponding to a bill of just under $60. These customers would see their average monthly bills increase by $3.56. In summer months with higher electricity usage, average usage increased up to about 500 kilowatt hours for customers in apartments and condos with bills of just over $90. For this level of consumption, monthly bills would increase by $5.40. Customers in single-family homes have a slightly higher monthly fixed charge and higher average monthly consumption. Average bills for these customers would increase from about $130 to $140 per month. Average summer usage in 2021 was as high as 1,100 kilowatt hours, corresponding to a bill of just under $207, and this bill would increase by $12.39. This slide shows a comparison of monthly electric bills for the average single-family usage amount. The orange portions of the bars show rate increases for 2022. If we look back over the last fiscal year, SCE and PG&E have each had rate increases of around 20%. If the bars do not have an orange component, it doesn't necessarily mean there won't be a rate increase. It just means we don't know what it will be yet. Burbank's electric rates remain among the lowest in the region, even with the proposed increase. BWP is not taking the rate increases lightly, and we know that they place a burden on customers. One way we are aiming to lessen the impact on our customers has been to identify opportunities for cost savings. And over the last 12 months, we have tracked $25 million in cost savings or cost avoidance. One example is in contract negotiations. In one case for our Lake Street facility, we were able to save $4 million by negotiating for a leased turbine instead of spending money on a refurbished turbine. Another example is insourcing work within the city instead of using a PSA for a contractor. BWP was able to save $1.2 million by insourcing a paving project to Public Works. In addition to cost savings, BWP identified, applied for, and received over $2.5 million in grants to help offset customer arrears for electric and water, which increased during the pandemic. Another way BWP aims to lessen the financial burden on customers is through financial assistance programs. We have information on our website, and we have customer service representatives who are available to discuss options for financial assistance. There are options for renters, homeowners and landlords, small businesses, income-eligible customers, and unemployed residents. We are working on a new financial assistance program that would provide 10 to 15% off the electric bill and would widen income eligibility requirements to help more individuals struggling with the cost of living in Burbank. We are working with Burbank Parks and Rec to align the enrollment process with the PASS program such that customers who signed up for PASS would automatically be eligible to enroll in this program. We will also be reaching out to seniors in the nutrition program with information on financial assistance, coordinating with Marissa Garcia, the Parks and Rec Director, and her team. We understand that not everyone in the community can afford additional rate increases, and this program will help us aim to keep utility services affordable for all customers. With that, staff is recommending that the council adopt a resolution of the City of Burbank approving increases to fees and charges for water, refuse, sewer, and electric service for inclusion in the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 citywide fee schedule. Staff from both BWP and the Public Works Department are available for any questions you may have upon completion of the public comment section. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We will now open the public hearing to hear from any persons who wish to speak on this matter. Each person may address the council for up to 3 minutes on this public hearing item only. For members of the public who are here in person, please present a completed Salmon public hearing card to the city clerk if you wish to speak.
I do not have any cards from the audience, but I do have a caller online, and we're ready to transfer.
All right. For those of you who wish to call in during the public comment period, please call now at 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in a queue until all in-person comments have been received. Okay, thank you, and welcome.
Is my name called correctly? Our first caller is Kenya Escobar.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Kenya Escobar. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing us to have this space to voice our opinions. I am here on behalf of those who could not be here, those who are working, those who are afraid to speak up, and those who don't think you will listen. As you all know, we have all faced challenging times these past 2 years. COVID is still here, and as we try to get our lives back to normal, we get hit with inflation. Groceries are up 4 to 7%, and gas is at an all-time high. The cost of living has gone up. Basic necessities now seem like luxuries. Now is not the time to increase rates for water, sewer, and other services. A lot of families are struggling. Senior citizens on a fixed income are now digging into their savings to survive. I hope those in charge of the City of Burbank will reconsider the increase and choose the community over capital. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we are done. I see, yes, confirming that. We don't have anyone else online. Thank you.
Okay. So there being no further public comment, I now declare the public comment period closed. Does the council have any questions of staff?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, so I can give you those numbers before you
Sure,
make your
go ahead.
final decisions.
Please.
So as I indicated earlier, there were 24 total correspondence that included staff's communications back and forth. But out of the 24, the 12 did express their concern and wrote opposed to the staff report and a recommendation to increase the rate. So as of right now, we have 12 correspondents opposing the staff's
Well,
recommendation.
thank you. Duly noted, 12 have been opposed. Does the council have any questions of staff? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, earlier, Councilmember Frutos asked what the number is required to lodge a protest, and thank you to BWP, they did include that information in the staff report, but for the purposes or for the benefit of the audience who may be listening, the number is 50% plus one of eligible persons are required to, who can submit a protest. So we're nowhere close, essentially, we're nowhere close to that number.
Yeah, I believe the answer was 26,000.
Based upon, yes, well, whatever the population is of the city of Burbank who are property owners or tenants, right? with
Yeah, service
rights.
provide, I mean, who we provide service to, not so
Yes,
much
who
the
pro-
population.
Correct, who pay fees. Right. So, again, we're nowhere close, but for the audience who may be listening and don't have access to the staff report, I think that was good information to provide.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
If 26,000 people all wrote in a petition and said we don't oppose, we oppose the rate increase, what do we do here? Our hands are tied and we say, okay, we can't do it, and that's the end of it? If that's what would happen?
We'd have to follow the procedures that are outlined in Proposition 218. I apologize, I can't speak to exactly what that process would be, but we would look into it, and if we had hit that required number, you wouldn't be able to approve it tonight. We would have to go back, and I would have to provide that information about
Okay.
what the next steps would be.
But we didn't hit that number
No.
or anywhere close to it, so now it's up to the four of us to figure out what to do.
Well, yes, whether you
Okay.
want to
Okay, all
approve.
right, thank you.
Councilmember Springer.
Yes, thank you. Can you please go over the financial assistance programs that BWP offers? They're online. I would just like our residents to hear them. And a question that I have is, I know we have 1.1 million left from the pandemic. We all voted to put money aside to help people with their utility bills. I think there's 1.1 million. Do we think that will cover, that will provide enough assistance to cover the increase for people who can't pay?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. The current financial assistance programs are, there's a BW Project Share program, which provides payment assistance of up to $100 in the form of a bill credit to income qualified customers. There's the BWP Lifeline program. It offers income qualified customers a reduced rate as well as exemptions from the monthly customer service charge and the utility users tax, which is about a 40% discount. There's also the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. This is a federally funded program that provides low-income households with a one-time financial credit towards the utility bill and free energy efficiency upgrades. The $1.1 million, we're looking to see, BWP does not have income information on its customers, on individual customers. So we look at income information that's either via a proxy, such as number of customers in arrears, or by census block. But we think that expanding the financial assistance programs to a higher income eligibility should be able to expand it to about 6,000 additional households. And with an increase of $10 to $15 for 6,000 additional households, I believe we're estimating that $1.1 million would provide about 12 months of of support for those customers. If there's any other programs or efforts.
So thank you. So we would be able to help 6,000 more households. That's what we're
Yes,
thinking?
offset. We'd be able to help about 6,000 additional households offset the impacts of the rate increases for about a year.
Okay. And the Lifeline program, you said it's a 40% discount, so it would, the 40% discount would stay the same, but if the rate went up, so they would still get the 40% discount.
Yes, so the customers don't pay the monthly service charge and the utility user tax. It adds up to about a 40% discount. So the rate increase for the components of the rate that they pay, that rate would go up. But in essence, that 40% discount, the discount equates to about 40% of the total rate. So that rate would increase, but it's still less than other rates, if that makes sense.
Thank you. And on the Project Share program, so they automatically qualify since they're already in the program? Do they?
For Project Share, I'm not sure. Dan, I'd like to ask Dan Tunnicliffe, the AGM customer service. Yes, for automatic.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Councilmember Springer. Welcome. The income
Could
qualification.
you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, yes, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Dan
Thank
Tunnicliffe, Assistant General Manager, Customer Service Operations. The income qualifications for Project Share are very similar to Lifeline. So what we're also looking at doing is aligning our programs going forward with the past program that's offered by the Parks and Recs Department, which will raise the income qualification levels.
Okay, thank you. So with the programs that we have and the 1.1 million, do we anticipate helping everybody who needs help? And I know that it's better for us to pay for the people who can't pay the increase because of lots of reasons, because of our bond rating and our 60% renewable mandate by 2030 and the enormous fine if we don't achieve that 60% renewable benchmark. So are we coming close, or are we helping everybody we think needs help?
Thank you, Council Member. The 6,000 was a proxy number that we were using based on the number of customers, based on arrearage numbers. It's hard to tell whether that is the total number of households that we would be able to help or that would need the additional help. But that is a number that we had been able to identify based on the data that we have. And that number, we'd be able to help that number of customers with the 1.1 million that we have. We're still looking. I think we'll be able to tell as the program opens up whether that proxy estimate was a good estimate for the total number of customers that would need assistance and be able to adjust as we go.
Thank you. And we'll, of course, apply for more state and federal money as it becomes available.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is Dawn Roth-Lindell, Burbank Water and Power's General Manager, and thank you for that question as well. Before I answer that one, I just wanted to go back. The past program for a family of four, the income is around $90,000. It's a little over that $90,000 mark. So that gives you an idea of the level of support and help that people would be able to receive. Then on the question of we will continue to look for grant money, yes, we are actively looking at every possible grant that we can get, and we will continue to do that. Much of the infrastructure, what is IIJA again? Does anybody? Infrastructure. Thank you. Infrastructure Investment Job Act from the federal government. Much of that funding is just coming into play with opportunities to go after grants. And in fact, this week alone, we looked at four different grant options that came through to see if there were any of those that we can potentially qualify for. We will continue to do that.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I have a question. We have a letter from AGLA, the Apartment Association of Greater LA, and they've, they're writing and requesting assistance, relief on behalf of apartment owners, many of who are small, and often they pay, the small landlord pays the water for the tenant. What kind of assistance is available for them?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have some strings attached to the funds that we are able to collect. And do you want to address that, or? Sure. Okay. Very good. Go for it.
Again, Dan Tunnicliffe, Assistant General Manager, Customer Service Operations. We do have some water efficiency funds that are available to help offset some of the costs. There's a pilot program that we're also looking at using funds from Metropolitan Water District. So there are some funds that are available for the landlords. I don't have all the specifics for them, but there will be some relief to help reduce the costs through conservation measures.
Through conservation measures, is there any financial assistance for them? Like maybe they're like all conserved, they've done everything that possible to conserve.
So
And
the primary low-income funding, the funding for our low-income rates are through electric rates. So it can only be used for electric funds. So the Lifeline discount is, the 40% discount is on the electric rate itself. It's a mandated legislative fix for ensuring that we have some funding available for low-income customers. That does not apply to water customers. So we would have to come up with a separate program funded by other ratepayers for that.
It's really into commercial customers.
Yeah, and commercial, yeah, and we can't use it for commercial either.
so when you say funded by other ratepayers, what do you mean by that? Because what I'm thinking is we have, we're in a very precarious situation, and I don't want to put any pressure on any landlord to have to pay the rent, to raise the rent to cover the water bill. So I'm wondering
So
if
any
there's-
discount, I could let Miles talk about it too, but any discount we apply to one class of customers would have to be recovered by another class of customers. So it would be spread. A discount we provide to small, apartment owners would then be picked up by all the other customers.
And the other thing I might add is that some very small business owners qualify as residential. So we can apply our discount to residential accounts only. So we ran into this issue last year as well, but the funds that we collect with the strings that are attached make it for residential customers only and not for commercial customers. So we don't have a funding source to be able to discount for commercial.
So the small landlords are considered commercial?
Depends on the size. So depends on the size and the account. So they'll have to call in, and we can see if we can help them, and we'd be happy to do that.
Okay. And another thought I had was maybe Ms. Garcia would know if it's a possibility to get Project Hope, ask Project Hope volunteers to help with identify maybe
Mr. Mayor?
utility help.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't want to get too far afield from our agendized item. I think the conversation so far can be related back to whether or not you're going to vote for the rate increase, but I don't want to get too far into other projects.
Yeah, this public hearing is for the rate increase, so let's stay focused on that. And then we can maybe agendize something new in the future to discuss what's available. I mean, that'd be a perfect way of doing it.
Certainly. The one answer I can provide that I think is related still to the rate increase and the ability of the Park and Recs Department's past program rates, we are partnering with our amazing Park and Rec Director and her staff to find a path for people who have applied in one organization for the past benefits to be able to have access to both organizations' benefits without having to go through a hassle of another application, et
It
cetera.
just makes sense. I mean, really.
Yes, we want to make
Yeah.
it easy for Burbank to do
Sure.
business with.
Right.
And so we are very much in alignment on that. We are still working through exactly how to do that, but we will find a way.
It's work in progress.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. But I'm just trying to, in an effort to respond to the correspondence that we've received, so succinctly, how would you respond to the Apartment Association of Greater LA and their landlords in Burbank?
I would suggest that if landlords would like to call in, and we can see what we might be able to do or what they might qualify for. And so there may be conservation items that they qualify for, depending on if they are commercial property or residential property, they may be able to qualify, et cetera. So we'll have to look at those one by one.
Okay, thank you. And the number is 818-238-3700? Thank you.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No,
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that presentation. I wanted to ask a little bit about the arrears that we have currently. I know a lot of people couldn't pay during COVID. What's going on with our 30, 60, 90-day folks? Do we consider them arrears the first month that they're not able to pay? Is that what okay, so how much is out there? How much do people owe? What's is it commercial? Is it residential? Can you talk me through a little bit about that?
Sure. So we have current arrears that are between $5 and $6 million, and that is after paying out over $2 million in state funds, plus $900,000 funded by the financial programs that we have here already. So we've paid $2.9 million. We saw arrears falling as we were applying those funds. However, once the news came out that there would be state funds, we saw people once again not paying.
Okay.
And so the arrears have climbed back up to the $5 to $6 million. The governor in his most recent May update on the budget, it appears he's looking to include funds again for CAP 2.0 to help those customers who got into arrears due to COVID to have additional funding. So the first program covered through June 15th of 2021, and the second program would look to cover from June through December of 2021, so customers impacted by COVID during that time frame. So those customers who lost a job due to that, et cetera. So there is a portion of our arrears that are that. There's also a portion of our arrears for people who probably were not impacted but thought they might decide to get some free money too if it was available. And so we'll have to do some discernment through that.
And that process, the discernment, are we still offering, I know we just talked about increasing the amount of help that we're going to give folks. Is that part of that program when people apply? Are we looking at them? We're saying, oh, you're in arrears. Have we started applying penalties and fees to the folks who wouldn't qualify for these programs?
We have not. So we have not reinstituted our shut-off program. We are looking for those customers who have arrears and who, even after the payments are not able to catch up, we will be offering payment arrangements up to as much as 24 months for them to be able to pay off what they have not paid for along the way. And as long as they stay with their payment arrangements and continue to make those, then they would be not cut off. But we will, at some point in the not too distant future, we will reinstitute cutoffs for those folks who are not.
And do we only use cutoffs, or do we also include penalties and fees and interest? Like, do we use that at all to get?
I started mid-COVID, so I actually do not know that answer. I think Mr. Tunnicliffe would like to come forward and answer this for us.
Yeah, what did we do before COVID?
I
when
saw
people
his
would-
hand come on and volunteer.
Dan Tunnicliffe again, Assistant General Manager, Customer Service Operations. Yes, we do. Prior to COVID, when we had our normal disconnection processes, late fees would apply after 31 days and to motivate customers to pay. And then after 60 is when we would start actually, before 60, we would start issuing notices, that emergency notices, urgent notices, to get customers to pay. Otherwise, we would end up shutting off service, electric service.
Okay, thank you, because I got the job mid-COVID too, so there you go. Okay, great, thank you, I appreciate that, and, I'm hopeful that the governor, the state will give us more of that money, because you're right, there are some people who took advantage, but there are definitely some folks who definitely couldn't pay, and having that discernment, I think, is excellent, especially if we have this program and people are applying, we're able to look at their income, we're able to make that judgment rather than them being silent, so we don't know who's out there. Okay, yeah, that's, I'm good.
Good. I'm good that you're good. Madam General Manager, I have a question. Did Burbank Water and Power consider all the cost-saving measures before recommending these rate increases?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, we did. We started collecting our cost savings measures, and I want to be clear that the staff has been moving toward cost savings all along. We just weren't tracking them. And we could see the writing on the wall, so we started tracking them in the last year so that we would be able to bring those to bear on reducing what it could have been, which is $27 million more. That we would have had to cover. So thanks to the staff's effort. And I would also say, we haven't even tracked all of them. And an example of this is the amazing efficiency of our linemen, which was demonstrated at the Lineman Rodeo on this past Saturday, where we placed second out of 25 utilities. And there are utilities that actually practice for the rodeo and have teams that their job is to work on that. We don't do that. We have all of our linemen actively working, and we train them. They train each other, and they train up on being super efficient, and they apply that in their day-to-day work. And they are that good that when they go to compete, from the work that they deliver every day, they place second overall and first in 2 individual events. So, there's not a way to quantify how being that efficient helps to keep the rates down, but that's what the team delivers.
Well, take our congratulations to that, please.
You betcha.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes, thank you. What is the estimated impact if we don't approve these rates in terms of impact to the utility, to Burbank, and even to rates?
Yes. The impact would be, if we do not get the rate increase, we are not able to address the sustainability measures that are mandated by the state, which means, first, the impact on greenhouse gas reduction is not there. And so, yes, it's mandated by the state, but I believe that we have a large portion, I don't remember exactly, but around 60 to 70% of our population would like to see us reduce the greenhouse gases, at least even with the state mandates, if not faster. We want to preserve our planet, and that's why the state mandates are in place. Without the funding, we're not able to go after that. The state mandates have teeth, and the teeth come at the year 2030 if we miss our 60% with fines up to $147 million, which we will have to charge for. It's a zero-sum game. We are not a for-profit institution. So our costs have to be then divided up, and we still have to meet the mandates. So we would pay those fines and still have to pay the rest to get to this. We also run the risk on the water side with our asset degradation. We have assets that, frankly, are not in good shape. We have, for instance, our Reservoir 2, if we fill it more than half full, it leaks. We cannot afford to spare a drop of water as we are in this drought situation, and we need to have our assets in place so that we are managing our water effectively. And again, we're seeing legislation come forward to move the amount of water our city's water budget, not in terms of dollars, but in terms of drops, is declining. And we need to take the appropriate measures to make sure that we are handling that all effectively. And we will need to do it whether we vote yes or not. So eventually, and eventually is pretty much now, we have to pay the piper. And we have, we had several years where we had very low or no rate increases, and the citizens were able to enjoy that. And unfortunately, we're now running out of time. And we've just got to meet these mandates, and we've got to take care of our assets.
Thank you. How would our bond rating be impacted?
Thank you. Excellent question, Councilmember Springer. So yes, if we are unable to get the needed rate increases, then our bond rating drops. And then when part of the way that we fund the capital work that we need to do is to go out and borrow money. And in our case, it's bonds, but it's like a home mortgage. You go out, and the better your credit rating, the lower your mortgage rate. Same thing for a utility. The better our bond rating, the lower the rate at which we can borrow money. And, in order to make these repairs and build these renewables, we need bond funding to be able to make those builds that we can pay off over the life of the asset, just like we would with a mortgage. So we can pay it off over 30 to 50 years, depending on if it's electric or water. And we want to pay that off at the lowest possible rating that we can. And so part of the bank's decision on our bond rating comes with our ability to get the rate increases that we need to get.
So we pay now or we pay later?
We do, and if we pay now or we pay more later, I would say.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
In essence, all those years of no increases, we were just kicking the can down the road.
That
and
is
we're getting
exactly
closer to the end of the road.
Yes, we're coming to a dead end.
Yeah.
We've got to build more road.
Councilmember Frutos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ma'am, in the report on page 2, third paragraph, MWD will be increasing its rates by 10% over the next 2 calendar years, 5% in 2023 and 5% in 2024. Why are we charging an additional 4% on top of the 5% for a total of 9% to the ratepayers?
Sure, excellent question. So in addition to paying for the water, which is what we buy for MWD, we have to pay for the means to get the water to the people who need it. And that is where our asset maintenance comes in. So the Reservoir 2 that is leaking, the Valley pumping plant that we're replacing the pumps in this year, that pumping plant has been in use and in service since World War II. Meanwhile, underneath our fine city, we have 280-ish miles of water pipe underground. 30 miles of that is already more than 100 years old. and we've got to be replacing those water mains. We continue to have some pretty major breaks, and right now the city is gently tolerating us as we replace that water main under Magnolia, so that we can continue to provide water where it needs to be provided. This past year, we had 3 water main breaks along Magnolia. So when the pipe gets to that brittle point, it just starts to break. And then, people can't plan for that, and people can't manage. We shut down all the restaurants on the Magnolia end of San Fernando one day when we had a water main break and the restaurants didn't have water. And that's just not the kind of service that we want to provide. So we need to go ahead and spend the dollars to do those asset upgrades to ensure that we've got the capacity. The pipes, the infrastructure, those are the things that cost the most money. People reference labor, but it's the stuff that costs money. The price of things, the pipes have gone up, the price of chlorine, which we need to inject into the water to keep it clean, has doubled in the last year. So it's, that's a 100% increase. So there are many components in our tool set besides just the water, and those are seeing at the rate of inflation or higher. And the rate of inflation right now is running over 8%.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes, Councilman Springer, go
Yes,
ahead.
we did receive an email. It's been quite some time, but BWB has the three-legged stool: sustainability, reliability, and affordability. And the writer supported the rate increase, and he suggested that affordability. We had emphasized the affordability leg for maybe way too long. And if you look at our rates, they're the lowest, some of the lowest around, and I think that is indication. And now because of that, the sustainability and the reliability is, we need to focus on those other 2 legs of the stool. This sustainability and reliability, or we're going to lose those.
Yes, I think that's a fair statement. Reliability has been very strong, and the team takes incredible pride in that and wants to ensure that the assets are in place, that we maintain that, because the lack of reliability has a significant impact on the lives of the people in this community who work here or live here. And then the affordability has been amazing, and we'll continue to keep a close eye on that and do everything we can to keep that as low as possible. But we are at the place where sustainability needs to impact affordability, and the state mandates make it that sustainability will impact the affordability, whether we go hard after that or not.
And so the chart on page 3 shows that even after the proposed increase, we're still below Glendale, Pasadena, Long Beach, Los Angeles in terms of monthly water bill.
Yes, well below. That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Price of gas is up, and the price of groceries has increased. Can we, as a body, vote to keep this rate increase from happening and thereby exempt our public utility from inflation? Could we prevent inflation from affecting the costs?
Boy, I sure wish we could. But no, unfortunately, we have to pay the prices for the items that we've got to buy. And the inflation rate for the utility assets is significantly above the standard rate of inflation. So I mentioned chlorine at double.
Mm-hmm.
Renewable contracts are up 35 to 60%. The price of natural gas is up more than 50% on average. So we are seeing, we are being hit with inflation just like everyone else is, and at a larger rate.
Mm-hmm.
So we are using all of our efficiency potential to keep that rate as low as possible.
And one of the things I keep reading about in inflationary pressures is that an item or a good or a service that you can replace with something comparable doesn't get hit as hard with inflation. So like if you buy beef and its cost is going up, you'll buy pork or you'll go to chicken or something like that, or locally sourced or from a different farmer or rancher. The stuff we buy for the utilities is very specific to this industry. Are there a lot of manufacturers out there? Are there a lot of replaceable or interchangeable things that we can purchase instead of what we normally buy?
There really are not. In fact, I would encourage American manufacturers to consider manufacturing the things that we need, because we need them stateside, we need them made here in America so that we can get them, and the price of importing them is continuing to go up. So
not only is it hit with inflationary measures, but it's the supply chain issues, it's the demand. Everyone's going to renewables. So all of these factors are coming in, and basically this is what you're saying is it's even above the standard inflation. It's even more expensive for this stuff.
that is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Any questions? Thank you. Before closing the public hearing, this is the last chance to submit any written protests on the proposed increases to city fees and charges for water, refuse, and sewer services to the city clerk. Madam City Clerk, can you please report on the protest tally? You mentioned it before, but.
The tally that I've given
Yeah.
earlier, yes.
Just in the continuity of the script.
Yes. It is, you have 12 opposing to the increase, total of 24 correspondents with 12 opposing to it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I now declare the public hearing closed, and the council will now deliberate. What is the council's pleasure? Is there a discussion or motion? Colleagues? Yes, Vice Mayor.
I mean, I pay utilities, and I don't want to pay more, but that's where we are. I don't want to pay more for my groceries. I don't want to pay more for my gas. This is the reality we're living in. This is every city in the country is dealing with. Every city across the world is dealing with this issue right now. I mean, if you're not, then you're a city that is okay with, old, outdated infrastructure and not having a good level of service, not meeting renewables, pumping carbon into the air, and that's not who we are. We are a responsible, caretaking city, and our utility reflects that. We talked about issues with our bond rating. We talked about issues about capital improvements. This is not we're not asking for too much. BWP has come to us with very reasonable, thoughtful expectations about the price. They're not, they're being very conservative in their estimates, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to be supporting these rate increases across the board because it's the only responsible thing to do. It's not a nice thing. It doesn't feel good to do it. And I encourage everyone who submitted a protest and everyone who is hearing about this later to reach out to our utility to get those rebates, to take advantage of the systems that we have. I'm so glad that we're moving towards the PASS program because, for a long time we tied our rebates to the federal incentives, but as we know, the cost of living in Burbank is higher than many other cities. So tying it to the federal incentives was not helping the people who absolutely needed it. You could be making, $75,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year in Burbank and still be scraping by with the cost of rent and the cost of gas. So increasing those numbers to help more and more families pay their bills, I think is the best part about this program. And we would only be able to afford that and pay for that, as was said earlier, by offsetting that cost to the folks who are now paying the increase in the rates. So it goes hand in hand. It's a hard and tough decision, but it's the responsible one.
Anyone else, or is there a motion I can entertain?
I think that raising rates is the right thing to do and will help our residents in any way that we can. And the phone number again to ask for assistance is 818-238-3700. And the website is burbankwaterandpower.com/financial-assistance. And it probably would have been a good idea to raise them incrementally over the previous decade, and we wouldn't have to do this today.
I
Thank
agree
you.
with that.
Yeah, I agree as well. You know, Burbank has always been available to help their residents. You know, some people, you got to reach out, make it available to them. But Burbank Water and Power is right there on Magnolia. You can stop by and talk to somebody and discuss your situation. And they're there to help you and assist you in any way they can. Councilmember Frutos?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably one of the top 5 things that keep me awake at night as a council member, one of them is the utility. And I pay close attention. During the summer months, I cringe when I hear blackouts, rolling blackouts, and I pay attention how long it takes to get the power back on. It usually affects the city of LA, and coming from another lifetime from the city of LA and realizing how old that city is and how old the infrastructure is, I cringe that that could happen in Burbank. I worry about that. I worry about not having enough power, especially how hot it gets here. We're in a bowl. And, you know, I live in the flats. You guys live some in the hillside. But the bottom line is, as one community, there's a big bowl around us. And we get choked. And the last thing I would want is to have a rolling blackout because the infrastructure just wasn't capable of keeping up with our ever-changing city. Because my first priority is to fight hard for the lowest possible rates out there, while at the same time avoiding what other cities have done by kicking the can down the road. This is not the most favorite topic in raising people's utility rates, but when it comes to the electric side, I take into consideration, number one, the residents. They got air conditioning, turn it on, stay cool, keeping the lights on to make sure that our cooling centers are up and running. Because when it gets over 100 degrees, I don't know, when I was younger, it was no big deal. Now at 58-ish, now it's a big deal. I got to have my cool AC on. I worry about the water. And the last one that I thought was horrible in the city of LA was right there by that Gelson's Market, right off Ventura Boulevard, and I believe it was Laurel Canyon. I drove around there, and some of those folks were out of water for 3 weeks. And I know that we would be up in alligators on this dais if that same scenario happened. I'll use my street, Buena Vista and Victory. And we didn't do what was right as leaders, thinking about the future, and most important, making sure that the lights are on, because I don't want my rates increased. And I'll bellyache because it's a little more money out of my pocket. And I'm retired now, so I totally understand. But I can't be cheap when it comes to the movement and success and the future of our city and its 107,000 residents, because if we can't produce reliable energy, sustainable energy, while working on the environmental issues of climate change, because it's a reality, it's here, and we've got mandates that are not funded by Sacramento. What's going to happen to our business community? What's going to happen to the cute, charming shops in Magnolia Park if they get a pipe that breaks overnight and all their shops are flooded, and it's taking them 3 weeks to tear up the street, put in the new pipes, and not to mention basically the residents also in those neighborhoods. So I don't think we have a choice. We didn't raise it during COVID. We took the input and the council took a leadership. And I agree that that wasn't the time. But then again, it's never the right time. But being tough leaders that we are and having to make the right decision, no matter how painful it is, I will be supporting this. And it's painful, and I understand the protests that we got, but when you look at the law objectively, only 12 expressed basically opposition to the 26,000 ratepayers. I take my responsibility to heart. And like I said, the utility does keep me awake at night when I hear rolling blackouts, power outage, and water mains. And 3 in our city is just an indication that, you know what? We need to reinvest in our infrastructure for our city for the next generation and make sure we get reliable power and electricity and meet the mandates that are coming down that are not funded by the state of Sacramento. So I will be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and colleagues.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree the same thing. I don't want to pay more. I mean, obviously, I live in the city of Burbank. It's one of the requirements to represent the community as a council member.
Mr. Mayor, you're not exempt. You don't get free water and power being the mayor?
That went away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But obviously, it's the right thing to do. I mean, obviously, if you don't invest in our infrastructure, we're 111, 113 years old, the city, right? And, the shoulder starts hurting, the elbow, the hip starts bothering you as you get older. The same thing with the infrastructure. Things start to break, things start to, one of the tanks is only half full instead of half empty. But nonetheless, it's something that we have to do. It's the right thing. As visionaries, as the leaders of the community, we have to set the standard. And obviously, the staff has done all the work. And they bring it to us. They bring the bad news to us. But then we have to move on it and just for the betterment of the community. That's the bottom line. I know there's some that don't agree with it, but nonetheless, we only had 12 protests. It takes 26,000 protests, and not that I wanted to go there, but you're right. It's a tough decision to make, and we have to make it as the leaders of the community, do the right thing with the input of the staff. And they tell us, they paint the picture of what's looking forward. This is what we might have to deal with. Like if we don't meet those sustainability goals, $130 million penalty, and you still got to do it. It's not like a $130 million penalty gets you off. You don't go off, okay, you pay the penalty, that's all right, you don't have to. No, it's the penalty plus you have to implement all the requirements. So anyway.
It's 147 million.
There you go. So you just got up by about a couple million more. Go ahead.
And I also wanted to talk about the sewer rate increase because I was watching the whole budget. I know we're talking about the utility, but I know we're all in this together. But you know what? Our sewage has to go somewhere, and we don't have our own sewage treatment. So I don't want that backing up either. Then we'd really be getting phone calls from the residents at 3 a.m. And then the refuge, I sat down with their director from Public Works, and we talked in great detail of the future of the landfill and the closure of it in the future and the extension of how many more years, because they are working more efficiently. But what we didn't really talk about, or at least I'll bring it up real quick, is that mandate of composting that's mandated by the state. That's now the law, and there's no way around it. And the residents need to know that this is another mandate from Sacramento with no funding that has to come from the local government, that our director from Public Works, through its refuge section of his department, has to come up with the composting. And we've got to start now. Our food scraps can't go in by itself, into the black bin, and they've got to do the marketing education, because we're going to be held financially liable as a city if we don't separate our organic, basically food waste, from our homes and our restaurants. And I spent a lot of time going over this because I was reviewing the budget with him, at least from his department. And it's another mandate from Sacramento that's now law that we have to comply or be heavily fined. So I want to reassure the residents that I, along with my council colleagues here, we've gone through this budget with our department heads, our city manager and assistant city manager, but there's really no way around it this year in this budget. There's no financial wiggle room to negotiate and drop, because I've listened to some of the emails, just reading them, and hey, can we, and I understand where the residents are coming from, but when you really look at the bigger picture and the budget and what we got to do based on the mandates from Sacramento, we're doing tough leadership here. It's the pain of all of us, along with our residents having to basically fork out more coins to meet the mandates and make sure that we have a reliable, sustainable utility, including our refuge and sewage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We just have to remember that sustainability is very expensive. It's a very expensive venture, and we're going down that road because we're good stewards, but nonetheless, it's going to cost money. And some people just don't realize that sustainability is very expensive. And to be good stewards of our environment, to be good stewards of just for the future of our kids, grandkids. I've got 5 grandkids, by the way. It's very important that we have to stick to the plan, and it's going to cost, regardless of what some of the people that are against it. It's unfortunate. I don't want to pay my colleagues are saying we don't want to pay more, but at the same time, we know that's the future. Whether you agree with that or not. You want to see? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if you're ready, I'd like to make a motion.
Please, I've been waiting for somebody to come forward.
I move that we adopt a resolution of the Council of the City of Burbank approving increases to fees and charges for water, refuse, sewer, and electric services for inclusion in the 2022-2023 citywide fee schedule as laid out in Attachment 1.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilmember Springer seconds it. Any other further comments? Madam City Clerk?
Vice Mayor Anthony,
Yes.
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos,
Let me get my wallet. Oh, yes.
Mayor Talamantes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Great discussion. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. We have 3 reports to council this evening. After staff's presentation, the City Council will proceed with in-person public comment only for each item. Please fill out a yellow public comment card and head it to the city clerk. Speakers will have 3 minutes to speak on the item at the conclusion of the presentation, as long as the speaker has not spoken on the item during the first period of public comment. The first report is the appointment to fill 1 vacancy on the Sustainable Burbank Commission for an unexpired term. Madam City Clerk, please present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report to appoint, as you indicated, a member to the Sustainable Commission. On April 6th, the City Clerk's office began advertising and accepting applications for the vacancies on the Sustainable Burbank Commission for an unexpired term ending July 31st, 2023. This was as a result of resignation of Laura Tenenbaum, who was appointed to the Burbank Water and Power Board. In order to obtain qualified candidates, a notice of unscheduled vacancy was advertised through the following: the city website, city council meeting announcements, all social media platform by the city clerk's office, press releases to LA Times, Burbank Leader, myburbank.com, and also notices posted on City Hall bulletin board, along with community groups and organization advertisements. The deadline to submit application to the city clerk's office for the Sustainable Burbank Commission was Friday, May 6th at 5 p.m. The city clerk's office received 5 applications. Applicant number 1 is Ben Blandford, Samantha Moulton, Jenny Deal, Jessica Lewis, and Charles Wilson. The applications are listed in the order we received, and all the applicants have met the City of Burbank COVID-19 vaccination policy requirement. Please note that one of the applicants, Jenny Deal, has also applied for the Civil Service Board If appointed tonight, her name will be removed from the consideration of the Civil Service Board appointment, which is tentatively scheduled for July 12. And with that, if you don't have any questions for me, we can move forward with the vote.
Colleagues, are we ready for the vote? Yes.
Okay, I will read the names again, and then we'll go back and take the vote. First one is Ben Blanford, Samantha Moulton, Jenny Deal, Jessica Lewis, and Charles Wilson. I'm taking now the vote for Ben Blanford. None. Samantha Moulton. None. Jenny Deal. I have 4. That would conclude our appointments. Congratulations to Jenny, and you are now appointed. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Can I approach the board for 1 second?
No, not yet. No.
Okay.
I'm in charge of the meeting still.
Okay.
Until my colleagues decide I'm not. Let me see. You can speak after.
Okay.
The next report is a continuation of the review of the proposed fiscal year 2022 to 2023 city budget. Ms. Jennifer Becker, Director of Financial Services Department, please present the report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Jennifer Becker with the Financial Services Department. We are back to continue our fiscal year 22-23 proposed budget review, and our focus tonight is going to be on those remaining follow-up items requested at the May 3rd City Council meeting. And if we could just briefly bring up our very short PowerPoint. So this week you received a couple of additional discussion papers that were requested by the City Council. The first is a review of the $15,000 budget request from the Police Department for personal protective equipment and the availability of salary savings to cover that request, as requested by Councilmember Frutos. Next is a request from Mayor Talamantes to increase the funding for cultural arts. And following that, we have 3 additional follow-up items from the CIP presentation provided by Public Works on May 3rd. We'll discuss the San Fernando Boulevard reconfiguration study. We'll identify the available funding within the proposed 22-23 budget for traffic calming measures, and we'll review the next steps for the proposed improvements to the Olive Avenue Bridge. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce Chief Albanese to discuss that first police budget item.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Frutos and Springer. I think the memo that was generated answers all the questions and concerns that you had. So I'm believing that we'll be good to go moving forward. If you have any additional questions, please ask.
No, Chief, I just want to thank you and Ms. Paget, if I hope I pronounced your name right. Courtney, Ms. Courtney. Thank you for opening the books and let me going back and forth with you to identify my concern. Thank you for clarifying it.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with no further action on that item, I will introduce Ms. Garcia to discuss the cultural arts funding.
Good evening, Mayor Talamantes and council members. I'm Marissa Garcia, Parks and Recreation Director. Staff is before you this evening to request council's endorsement to increase the city's support of the arts. As you may recall, at the May 3rd City Council meeting, Mayor Talamantes requested to increase cultural arts funding by an additional $200,000, utilizing one-time funds to be allocated over 4 years. The city has a long history of supporting arts and culture in the community through various forms. Specifically via the Parks and Recreation Department, the city promotes arts across various avenues, including the Betsy Lukey Creative Arts Center, diverse art programming, activities and events, a well-establishment of an Art and Public Places Committee and diverse public art program, and a Cultural Arts Commission whose mission is to enhance Burbank's status as a regional arts destination. These offerings are coordinated by the Parks and Recreation Department with the overarching support of the Parks Recreation Board. To further support the arts, in fiscal year 2005-2006, Council established a Perform Arts Endowment with $100,000 in a reserve account. The purpose of the endowment was to accrue interest, and in turn, that interest would be used to sustain an arts program. The following year, in 2006-2007, Council made an additional appropriation of $100,000 into that endowment account for a balance of $200,000. As of July 2021, the endowment had accrued $20,000 in interest for a total balance of $220,000. During the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget, so last year, then Vice Mayor Talamontes requested consideration to enhance funding for the arts in Burbank. Thereafter, at the May 25th, 2021 City Council meeting, Council approved staff's recommendation to appropriate $50,000 each year over the next 4 years from the endowment account to support Perform Arts. As supported by Council throughout this current fiscal year, staff worked with the Commission and the Parks and Recreation Board to develop an allocation plan for the use of the annual $50,000 appropriation. Following staff's research and meetings with the Cultural Arts Commission and the Parks and Recreation Board, staff determined that the $50,000 allocation will be utilized to meet 3 goals. First is to hire a consultant with grant experience. Second is to create an arts grant program. And third, to identify shared space for performances and support the Commission's related events. Staff is in support of Mayor Talamontes' request of increasing cultural arts funding by allocating $200,000 or $50,000 annually for the next 4 years. With Council's commitment to cultural arts, these additional funds could support the 3 goals endorsed by the Commission and the Board. Moreover, these funds may also be used to further the Commission's goals of expanding outreach, gaining exposure, and highlighting artists and local organizations. Currently, funds needed to support many of the Commission's efforts must be secured through in-kind donations. As the media capital of the world, the Council is in a very unique position to utilize one-time funding to support the Commission's events and allocate more money towards the Legacy Grant Program to actively foster, develop, and assist organizations that encourage arts participation and experiences by and for all members of the public. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your report. Colleagues, any comments, questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your report.
And of course, last but not least, I will introduce Mr. Berkman to talk about our final 3 items for the evening. And then at the end, when we wrap up, we can take council direction as far as whether we want to move forward with incorporating these items in the budget.
Does the PowerPoint come up, you think? Is it coming up on there? All right, thank you. Honorable Mayor, council members, pleased to be back. So a few follow-up items from last meeting. First for San Fernando Boulevard, the reconfiguration. This is a short-term priority project that was part of the council-approved Complete Streets Plan. And to recap, it's did I pop forward? I think I did. Yeah, thank you. To improve safety for all of the roadway users with a one-way configuration between Olive and Magnolia, looking to reconfigure parking and provide more outdoor dining. It is a test phase in the sense that it can be reversed. And last meeting, council asked if there was an option to consider full closure to basically a car-free configuration, which I noted it was not, because that was not part of the Complete Streets plan. So part of the Complete Streets plan was outreach, and that is what resulted in the San Fernando Boulevard configuration of this hybrid, this one-way with shared roadway. With outdoor dining. It was subsequently verified with a community survey. And that was in last May. And the results, the question was, would folks prefer the hybrid configuration that's in the Complete Streets plan, completely opening the roadway to traffic and parking, or completely closing it to traffic? And from the residents and visitors, we had a 50% support for the hybrid model, 23% completely open to traffic, and 27% that preferred it to be closed to traffic. Now, with the PBID, their results when queried were 53% in support of the hybrid configuration, 35% completely open to traffic, and only 12% to be closed to traffic. So in response to last meeting, what would it take from the consultant to take a look at this additional option of completely closing it to traffic? And we went back, and there wouldn't be any cost because we already had several options that were in there. So they said that's fine, we can accommodate that, but it would delay the project by 2 months for their study. The next request was regarding traffic calming citywide, and happy to let council know that within this 22-23 budget, in anticipation of that, Public Works and Traffic Engineering put in a request for additional monies for contractual services and engineering design to the tune of $200,000 to have on-call consultants support the traffic section for those endeavors. The work would include traffic studies and preparing plans for traffic calming projects, as well as neighborhood protection plans and similar work. So the plan for Olive Bridge was requested, more of a long-term plan. So currently, there's a capital project in the books for this current fiscal year to replace the railings on both Olive and Magnolia, as well as do the maintenance work that's required. And that's a Measure P project that we're pursuing. It's in the RFP stage, request for proposal stage, to get a design consultant on board. And we're also currently seeking funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the federal funding, to be hopefully supporting this project. So one of the considerations with regard to Olive itself for the future, we could create a revised project sheet for fiscal year 23-24, because we're already currently working on the existing project. This could restart the investigation and consideration of widening Olive Bridge, provide bike lanes and pedestrian enhancements, and certainly the elevator connections to the Metrolink station on both sides of the bridge. We would seek to update the feasibility study that's already been prepared by a bridge engineering firm, certainly look at the costs. And one of the things in the previous report we want to take a closer look at, there are certain vertical clearances and potential right-of-way issues that we need to really kind of dive into to make sure any widening can actually be performed. So with that larger scale project, of course, we could continue to seek the IIJA funding and submit applications for a major project. And as we know, we could continue to work with Metro staff to create a joint project, potentially even replacing the bridge as part of the BRT project that's going up Olive. So in summary, we have the design phase right now for the project that we had to replace the railings and do the maintenance work. We're seeking funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We'll continue to work with Metro staff to potentially pursue design and construction of a larger scale project. And since we have the active project now, council could potentially direct staff to create a project specifically for Olive Bridge in fiscal year 23-24, which allows time for the IIJA program to develop, as well as for us to continue discussions with Metro and see where that winds up. So that concludes my presentation for those 3 items. I think I'll turn it over to Jen, and we'll take questions in a bit. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take some public comment. Are you through with your presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay. My script says proceed with, after staff presentation, go to public comment, right?
In-person public comment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So if anybody's here that is willing or want to speak on this issue that we just discussed, that staff presented, please feel free to come up.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any cards for this item.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, let's move on to discussion and recommendation. Colleagues? Yes.
I wanted to ask Mr. Berkman a few questions. So we have a $400,000 proposal to replace the railings on Olive and Magnolia.
Last year, in the capital program, there was $400,000 allocated to design services for both Olive and Magnolia, and the railing replacements, as well as some deck maintenance work.
So what is that going to look like? Like, are we tearing off the whole rails and putting brand new stuff? Are we just adding higher fencing to the rail? Like, what is the program?
It's anticipated that we would remove the existing rails and install new rails, in all likelihood, standard Caltrans standard fencing, probably similar to a tight chain link fencing, but that's not the final decision. We have to get into design services and see what options could be there that meet the standards that are required over the railroad and over the freeway.
Okay. Because I've seen, not in Burbank, but elsewhere, I've seen bridges where they don't take down the old rails and they just attach the fencing to the outside.
Mm.
Considering that one of the discussions we're talking about is replacing not just the Olive Bridge, but at some point the Magnolia Bridge, would it be more responsible to just do that quick fix rather than ripping down the rail? I mean, I don't mind just having two rails to save us some cash, because we know we might in the future be looking to replace it. So, like, how much cost savings would we get if we did that, just adding rails versus tearing down and putting them back on?
Yes, council member, a great point. Something we share the thought on. When we were first looking at this and I was discussing it with the team, I said, well, if we are going to widen or do something else to the bridge, then let's have this be detachable and we can reuse it. Perhaps the railings, excuse me, that are there could stay there, but I know some are damaged.
Yeah.
And until we take a close look at maybe how sturdy they are, it might be better to take them out.
Okay.
If they can stay, then that's something we can, either way, we will be looking at that. But the point of kind of making sure we could reuse these fencing, and with a standard, it should be pretty easy to do. So if we widen it, we can the contractor could take it off and reuse it, for sure.
Yeah, so if council, if you'd agree, I'd like to give the discretion to Public Works to see if we can do sort of a cheaper option, maintain what we have there, do some just quick fixes and put on fencing rather than tear down the whole thing, put in a whole new railing, because at some point we may come back and redo the whole thing anyway. So I don't want to spend, I mean, $400,000. I'm sure we can bring that price down. So I'd just like to see some discretion.
Through the mayor, may I? That is just for design. The actual project cost is.
Oh, well, there you go.
You're talking
Yeah.
about $1 million.
Okay.
Correct.
Well,
sorry.
whatever you can do to save that beyond that, then.
Absolutely, understood.
Okay.
You know, just a way, I just want to make sure it looks good. I don't want to, you're going through Burbank, right? Look at, they did a patchwork job.
Right.
Are they too cheap to replace this existing, I just want it to look good.
Right.
And I know I've traveled a lot down to, on the 405, for example, the 5, and I've seen a lot of new bridges that have been built, and some of that railing looks beautiful. I mean, it looks very nice.
Right.
I don't want people to start talking about Burbank as they just patched up the railings.
Well, I guess then bring us some options. Let us see what it looks
yeah,
like. Let's see some
definitely.
designs. Because if we can cut down some costs and it still looks okay, I'd be okay.
I'm all for cutting costs.
Yeah.
But to what point?
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't want it to look like a patch job.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Springer.
Thank you very much. Chain link is not aesthetic. So that's my comment on that. So I'm
Yeah,
with you.
chain
It's
link,
got to-
there's different, I mean, you just mentioned chain link, I should have just stayed away from mentioning any fencing, because I've seen, I mean, if you go down to 5, the 405 is a perfect example. I know because I traveled to my son's house in Huntington Beach. There's like 4 or 5 bridges that they've done over the last 3 years. And they put up new fencing, new railing, welcome to Huntington Beach. You know, going to Palm Springs, welcome to Desert Hot Springs, right? You see all this, welcome to here and there. Welcome to Burbank.
Yeah, so something that looks good and is movable.
So, council members, the aesthetics is tricky, right, compared to the cost. So I think, thinking out loud, probably the thing to do, if I may suggest, when we are working on the RFP for design services, may we say there's maybe 3 options, and we could work with the Infrastructure Oversight Board to get their opinion and help us advise council, because beauty costs money, and
Just
beautiful
like we
bridges
mentioned.
cost. Railing project to protect pedestrians and protect the folks below, that's the primary purpose. When you go beyond these standards, then it can be costly, but it's something we can take a look at as options with our designer.
Vice Mayor?
Well, and I would just say, knowing that at some point in the near future, we're gonna be replacing these bridges, I feel more comfortable spending the good money for the nice aesthetic, that point, and anything we do in the interim, obviously not a cheap job, but let's do something that's moderate, works, is, amenable to the eyes at all, but not the end-all, be-all, the final product of what we want, because let's save that money for the what we're gonna end up with.
We're
So-
talking about a new bridge. There's gonna be years down the road. Years down the road.
I know,
Okay? It's not
yeah.
gonna be done the next day or a year from anyway, just be realistic. And the bridge is gonna be part our money and part Caltrans? Because of
The structure is partially Caltrans, but the maintenance is for us.
Right, but I mean, to replace the bridge.
We'd have to get their approval. Oh, for sure, yes. I mean, even the
So
fencing,
it's-
we're
it's
gonna have to
not
get their
gonna be
approval.
overnight.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Councilmember Springer?
I know I asked you about this before, but moving forward on this most immediate fence railing upgrade, for safety, is it possible to, when it's designed, to have a concept that it's included, like in the future widening? Because it will still separate, like, vehicular traffic from a potential bike and pedestrian lane, is that right? So could it be retained in a widening project?
So this railing would be on the outside of the bridges, the outside
Right.
edges,
But if we,
or fencing.
the existing outside edge, right?
Right.
So my question is, if the bridge is widened, like on one or both sides, say it's widened on both sides, could this proposed new safety railing, interim railing, be retained? Because it would separate the vehicular traffic from the widened lanes of pedestrian and bicycle.
Possibly. I don't know if it's
Okay.
just a simple, plug and play post on top of the bridge that then we just extend it outside. It's pretty complicated to say the connections and foundations would simply work. I picture an attachment on the outside of the bridge, and if it's a rail or a fence, whatever it is, coming up to, a minimum of 6 feet to protect the folks below, really.
Right. I mean, the future widened bridge would need its own railings.
Right, which was to Councilmember Anthony's
But-
point, hopefully we can reuse them and on the outside of the rails.
Okay, but I mean, I would see even that maybe the existing railings would be needed just to provide that buffer between the existing vehicular traffic and a BRT and the proposed bicyclists and pedestrians.
I think what Councilmember Springer is saying is that, like, if you kept the railing where it is now and then extended it, you could maintain that plus have another section, right, that would have a railing on
own
both
railing.
sides. So it's a
You'd have 1, 2,
protected
3, 4
pedestrian
railings.
or bike path. And so I think what I'm hearing you say, Mr. Berkman, is that it's going to depend on the structural assessment of that and how that widening would actually be accomplished. And so I don't think you could say right now until you actually do a
Right.
study how they would actually physically widen that bridge.
Well, for sure, you'd have to destroy the outside edges of the bridge, I think, to really, I mean, unless you built a separate bridge with a gap, which has been done. But it's something we can consider going forward on a larger project. Hopefully, you know, if that BRT goes in, or there's other ways to protect and separate bike and ped traffic from travel lanes. So we hear that for sure.
Okay, because now, I mean, it's pretty harrowing, you know, on the sidewalk with the cars going 45 miles an hour, maybe faster.
Yeah,
So-
understood.
Okay,
So
thank
you mean
you.
it's not like using Legos?
I wish. I wish.
Vice Mayor?
So I had an idea then.
Yes, share it with us.
If we took the time now and spent good money on a very aesthetically pleasing, safe, and secure railing, yet made sure that it was modular enough to be reused, that would save us the cost on the back end when we finally get to the bridge destruction and all that stuff. So maybe spending a little bit more money now to get the thing that we want for long term, and knowing that, okay, the materials that we're using, the setup of this railing, this is something we can take down, pull apart, and re-put. Like, I think that might satisfy pretty much all of what we're talking about here.
Councilmember Anthony, I think that was absolutely Mr. Berkman's plan, was to see if there was a way to build something that could be reused. And so you
Yes.
can do that now, not just with a chain link fence, as was mentioned earlier, but maybe
Okay.
something a little nicer, that's more aesthetically pleasing, that can also be replaced. I mean, that would be the appropriate thing to do if that was feasible.
All right, so then I'd like to change my statement to, I have an idea to, I have Ken Berkman's idea, and I'd like to say it back to him.
That's an excellent idea, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Frutos.
You know, Mr. Berkman, I'm probably going to be totally different than my colleagues.
Oh, Bob.
I support the 400,000, but I'm not here to micromanage you. I want a fence because I don't want people jumping off the bridge. I want a fence so it's safer. But because we don't know when we're going to get the bridge, there's other mandates that I'd rather have you work with the IOB and see what recommendations they come to the council, because this project will also be viewed by us and the public when you do the RFP, correct? Just like any other project. So I don't want to be in the weeds because we pay you the big bucks, and I have confidence in what you're doing. So I'm supportive, but I'm just a little bit different. I'm giving him specific directions because you just took me down memory lane. Every time I want to do something at my house, I know what I want, and God forbid I got to break this because now this has gone wrong. So I rather support the 400,000 for the safety of the pedestrian bridge, but empower you. That's your job. You get paid the big bucks.
I just want to make sure
That's
that
it.
that we understand 400,000 is for the design.
Correct.
Because
It's
that's
not-
what's on the
it's-
table.
It's not the building of it or
That's
anything,
what,
right?
but that's what I'm listening to you guys. Oh, I want, you know
And
what,
for
sir?
both-
Bring it back to us.
For
when-
both Magnolia and Olive Bridges.
Yeah, and work
So-
with the IOB and let them digest it with him. And I want to see what the recommendation is, but I'm definitely supporting the 400,000.
Right.
I think you do good work, sir.
Thank you, sir. Through the mayor, if I'm hearing council correctly, we're on board with continuing on the railing project. There will be a standard design, and there can be a couple of aesthetic designs that can be also removable and reusable in the future. And we could work with our RFP, make sure that's clear in the proposal process, and that the designers know what they're in for their scope of work, so they could probably price it and schedule it, because there's definitely time considerations, right? Especially if we do wind up getting federal funds, there's a quick sunset on them. So that when you think about creativity takes time, and if we're getting federal money, there's going to be that to consider in the future. But
Are there
heard loud and
matching
clear.
grants that are tied to the federal monies? Are you aware of that yet?
I'm sorry?
Are they matching monies that the feds want?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the $400,000 move forward with design came from with Measure P, that'll essentially work towards matching, hopefully, whatever we get. Because it's part of the project. So we've already invested our money, the city's money, into this project. So if we pursue construction money, that could be viewed as a match.
I was just going to say, it's a brilliant idea. I'm glad you came up with it.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Frutos, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, so when I got on 9 years ago, we were already talking about the Burbank Bridge. And you're senior to me. How much more time that you can remember was the whole concept of replacing the Burbank Bridge? How long in your time on the council?
Well, the actual construction from the time that we did the.
No, but infancy stage where the conversations were.
You're talking 20 years.
So 20 years.
20 years.
So even if we did it in half the
Burbank
time,
Bridge.
it's 10 years for either one of the bridges, Olive or, and that's
Okay,
kind of the perspective where I'm coming from.
I'm just planning out all those reelection campaigns, and that'll be fine. I'll be there.
Well, I'm just trying to, let the city management, we've given them the money through the budget process.
Well, we haven't yet.
Well, yeah, not yet, but I'm thinking positive that, and it's not for the campaign, and it's just realistic. I want, we want safety on that bridge.
Oh, yeah.
But I got that homeowners remodel nightmare that once they pull something out, at the end of the day, oh my God, now we got to do this and that. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you.
I just have a question, since, it's just for the design, the 400,000, could it be designed with a vision in mind of potential widening? Could we do that for the same 400,000? I mean, while we're designing, can we be real efficient with the designing part of it?
Yes, Councilmember, the intent was, no matter what we attach, is that it can be reused for a future widening.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion.
I have one other question, real
One
quick.
more thing.
So we did the polling for the folks on the San Fernando.
Yes.
So, and I just want to say, real quick, it's 2 lanes now, and we asked people, do you want to go down to 1 lane and a hybrid or get rid of everything? And most people did the 1 lane thing, and 50%. But what I'd like to see is after that's implemented and people get comfortable with that, then let's ask again, because I think people wanted, if you presented those 3 options, most people are going to go with the middle option. They're like, oh, well, we have 2. The option is 2, 1, or 0. I'll just do 1 lane. So I think once that's in place and people see it and they get used to it, I think we'll get a different response further down the line, so we can do this polling again. So I'm comfortable moving forward with the 1 lane because it's going to be easy to fix and change. It's not set in stone. I don't know if that's part of what the consultant can do now, or if we'd have to hire them back again next fiscal year or something like that. But I'd like to see, put it in place, see how we do, and then do another question, because people's attitudes may change when they realize, oh my gosh, getting rid of 1 lane was so great, let's do more. So I'd like to see that come back, if we could, that polling question.
Sure. Through the mayor, we can definitely do that. We work through community development and the economic development folks to take care of that. And that is actually part of the goals of the Complete Streets Plan, is to come back and tell you how it did in a year. So certainly.
Perfect, great.
I don't think there's too many people in the audience here or in staff that remember the Golden Wall.
I saw pictures.
You saw pictures?
Yes.
That's when it was completely closed. Anyway, any other comments? So we'll go ahead. We have a motion and a second.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
One of the remaining questions on San Fernando was, at this time, if I'm hearing you correctly, Mr. Anthony, not to currently pursue the closure option and just with the consultant.
Internally, I'd like staff to come up with that proposal, just on paper. But when we get the report back in a year, or whatever, the report back from Complete Streets, let's have that conversation. Okay, staff put together a thing with, this would be a closure, full closure, here's how here's how the 1 lane is doing. So I'd like to see both come together. And then in a year, if people are like, no, we hate this, we want to go back to 2 lanes, then we can scrap the full closure. Or if people are excited about it and want to see more, we have something ready to go. We have that option and say, okay, people are loving it. Let's ask that polling question again and see if they want to go to 0 lane. So is there a way we could move forward with just sketching out a full closure while still implementing the 1 lane today? I mean, is that an option?
That's where I'm getting confused. The question that was to staff was, can we add the additional option for the consultant to study to have a car-free shutdown San Fernando? So that's what
I guess I'm
hearing.
confused. Is the
Right.
consultant, are they not ready with the presentation now? Are they not ready to go
No,
forward?
we have not started the design.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay, I'm
it's the
sorry.
right time to see if we want to add additional scope to their work because they haven't started yet. So we
Okay.
went to them. That was it's an option. It wouldn't cost more money. It
Okay.
would take more time. And that's why we presented the complete streets plan, the fact that
Right.
it's a council approved plan, and that's where the hybrid came from. And then the follow-up from last May with the polling shows the lowest support for a complete closure.
Right.
So perhaps it's maybe not something to investigate now, but certainly with the one-way in place, once it's designed and implemented, which is reversible, and we come back to you in a year, that's something that we can take a look at.
But if you're saying it's free now, I don't mind doing it now.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay.
Just throw it in because they're
Yeah.
gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and then in a year we can take a look at it. But yeah, let's have the consultant
Okay.
look at it.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's the timing on the
Councilmember
San
Springer?
Fernando? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The timing on the San Fernando reconfiguration. Do we have a timeline on it?
You know, I did the last presentation, and I'm sorry I don't have it
Okay, that's
here,
okay.
but it's in the coming, year to complete the design and I think implement it. There's some outreach and prep that we have to do, so I
Okay,
can't
thank
remember
you.
exactly, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Berkman, let me ask you in regards to the bridges. I'm still thinking about, does MetroLink or Amtrak have they can throw some money in when we start talking about the Olive and Magnolia bridges? If down the road, if we decide to, right, we've got monies that are available, can we ask Amtrak, MetroLink, obviously Caltrans is going to be a player in it, when the replacement of the bridge?
Mr. Mayor, I can't speak for them. I don't know of any safety grant programs that they have for overpasses above the tracks, but they would be an approving authority because the work would be happening over.
Well, besides
their
approving,
railroad.
I'd want them to approve some resources.
We can ask, yes, sir.
You don't get if you don't ask,
We
right?
can always ask, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
We're not shy about that.
All right.
All right.
Councilmember Springer.
Yes, so just to clarify, on the San Fernando reconfiguration, the plan, there will be like 2 renderings but the plan that's moving forward is the one that is the hybrid with the single lane, and the PBID got the input from the businesses and from the residents.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Frutos.
I will add something for the funding in the future for those bridges, is if you're following high-speed rail, they're going to build it, and they're going to want to expand those bridges for that basically high-speed rail line, which is probably 10, 15 years out, if everything's going with their timeline. But if you look at it closely, we will get our newer bridges, but it'll probably come out of high-speed rail, because it crosses the tracks, and they're going to want that third middle rail, which is a lot wider than standard gauge, so.
Yeah, we want 2 lanes. They'll want a whole bunch of room there. Just put it on the list, Mr. Berkman.
Got
Don't
it.
forget it. Write it down somewhere. There you go. Don't take that with you if you leave. So do we have a motion in a second? We don't have a motion yet. I think you
Do
were-
we need, what are we doing? We got 3.
Do you need
I'm good.
some?
All good.
Through?
Do
Yeah.
you want, I just want to ask Mrs. Becker, do you want specific direction in terms of what should be incorporated into the budget for next week?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
helpful. So we had 5 follow-up items. I believe the only one left with an actual budget implication was the cultural arts funding. So I just would love to get some direction from the council as to whether to include that in the budget.
Yes, I say we move forward with it.
Okay, I see 4 heads nodding, so that's terrific. That ends our budget presentations. We'll be back next week with our public hearing and our adoption of the budget. And we'll see you then.
Okay. So we'll vote on all this next week. It's included and we'll be ready
Well,
to
no,
go.
we have to make the motion now for this.
We do not need a
No,
motion.
the items
Oh.
that you've asked us to direct,
Okay.
that those be put into the actual budget for next week,
Right.
and then it'll come back before you for adoption.
Right, so we'll return next week to adopt the budget for all funds, the fee schedule, everything at one time in one big package, and we'll kind
So
of,
next week will be the last bite of the apple, council members?
for this budget, yes, but we're back every quarter, so. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Bergman, thank you as well.
All the notes are in red on Mr. Berkman's paper there, so just that's right.
Okay, the third report is the adoption of a resolution approving projects to be submitted to the Arroyo Verdugo Communities Joint Powers Authority for funding through the Metro Measure M Sub-Regional Funding Plan. Mr. David Kriske, Assistant Director of Transportation, please present the report. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. David Kriske with the Community Development Department. The purpose of tonight's item is for the City Council to consider adopting a resolution approving projects to be submitted to the Arroyo Verdugo Cities Joint Powers Authority, or the ABCJPA, for funding through the Metro Measure M Sub-Regional Funding Plan. The City of Burbank receives ongoing regional funding through Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority under several transportation sales tax measures. We receive local return through each of these sales tax measures. That's the Prop A, C, Measure R, Measure P funding that we get every year for local return. But we also receive multi-year sub-regional funding through Measure R and Measure M, which is a little bit different from local return. This is regional funds that are allocated to projects in Burbank through the subregions. They are programmed by the subregions and then approved by Metro. The Measure M Subregional Funding Program is programmed by the AVC JPA Board of Directors, and that group, as you know, is made up of representatives from the cities of Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena, South Pasadena, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, and the county unincorporated area of Montrose. Metro has currently allocated about $34 million under the Measure M Subregional Funding Program for the Arroyo Verdugo AVC JPA. And that board has allocated these funds generally proportionally by city population to each city individually to construct transportation projects. Burbank has previously received funds to construct a portion of the Burbank Channel Bikeway project, about $3 million towards the $8 million project for that, as well as to purchase 3 compressed natural gas Burbank bus fixed route vehicles. Metro is now proposing to advance another $10 million through this program, and the ABC JPA board will be programming that additional money at their board meeting next month in June. Consistent with prior ABC JPA policy, the staff have recommended that this new funding be allocated also proportionally as we've done previously. And under that arrangement, Burbank would be set to receive an additional $4.4 million in new money as well as some previous unallocated money. To support the City Council's Burbank Bus Transit Vehicle Electrification Policy, which the Council adopted back in March, staff recommends that the City Council direct the ABCJPA Board representative to support allocating these funds to purchase electric transit vehicles in line with that policy. This would allow the city to begin procurement of 5 transit electric vehicles in line with the policy and the timelines that we talked about back in March. The Measure M funds would be available in 2025 and would allow the city to begin purchasing electric vehicles in 2026, which is under our policy, would allow us to meet the California Air Resources Board electrification mandates that we talked about in March. Staff recommends this funding be allocated to transit electrification because of the lack of other funding that we currently allocate to transit electrification, and because the funds become available around the same time when we start needing to buy electric vehicles. It would also give the city give us time to investigate the greater coordination with City of Glendale that we talked about in March in regards to electrification, which was all part of your policy that you talked about then. Alternatively, the City Council could instead request allocating these Measure M funds to complete streets projects or active transportation projects, such as projects in the Complete Streets Plan. However, staff does not recommend this approach because of the current number of complete streets projects and active transportation projects that are in our pipeline and under development, and the fact that we have no money allocated for electrification. So if the City Council supports the staff recommendation, staff recommends that the Council approve the proposed resolution that accompanies your staff report this evening, approving the projects to be submitted to Arroyo Verdugo JPA for funding through the Metro Measure M Sub-Regional Funding Program, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Kriski. Is there any public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor, we don't have any.
All right, thank you. So now we'll go to discussion. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Kriski, for that report. This money that's coming to us, you said 2.2 million?
Yes, it's 2.2 million of new money and an additional couple of $1 million in unallocated money for the total that we have.
And is all of that money guaranteed, or do we have to pass this and then ask pretty please, and then maybe they'll give us the money, or are we definitely getting it?
So the direction you'd give tonight would be for your ABC JPA representative, Councilmember Springer, to represent our interests when the board meets next month, and to advocate for the pro rata split, and then for us to allocate the funding to the projects that we want. Based on the ABC GPA staff discussions with this item, we're recommending that process be the staff recommendation. Of course, the board could decide to do something differently. I don't anticipate that, but it is certainly possible. So it's not certain, but it's a good situation.
You know, because we've been burned before, but I like the proposal, so let's go for it, I think.
Councilmember Frutos?
So when do we get the trolley bus?
So we're going to be talking about trolleys coming back to the council with the green route options. We actually had a very interesting, very good discussion with our Transportation Commission yesterday about the green route, and we'll be coming back to you probably in July with that information.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Springer.
you know, we've heard some concern in our community that, you know, maybe people aren't going to get back on public transportation as we emerge from the pandemic, and people may work permanently from home, more people. So what if the bottom just falls out of the need for bus transit?
So the good news about the situation with this money is it's not available until 2025. And while we are programming the money now, the ABC JPA periodically reviews its funding plan with Metro about once a year. And should conditions change with transit, or the city council's policy on transit changes in a way that this is not the way to go, we would have the ability through a subsequent ABC JPA update of the plan to request that our money be programmed in a different way. And that could, so we're not locked in. Where we would be locked in is much closer to 2026 when we're actually executing the contracts to receive the money. We'd have to be at that point pretty committed to wanting to proceed with electrification. But until then, there is opportunity as things change to reassess the policy. And quite frankly, we'd want to reassess our overall electrification policy if transit situations were different, or the electric mandate is harder than we thought, or things with Glendale don't work out. We would be back to you, I think, before that time.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, motion? Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I'll move that we adopt a resolution of the Council of the City of Burbank approving transit capital and modal connectivity and complete streets projects to be submitted to the Arroyo Verdugo Communities Joint Powers Authority for funding through the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority Measure M multi-year sub-regional plan as laid out in attachment 1.
I'll second.
Second, motion and a second. Madam City Clerk?
Vice Mayor Anthony,
Yes.
Councilmember Springer,
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos,
Yes.
and Mayor Talamantes.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is time for brief council comments, including reporting on council committee assignments. The key word there is brief. Councilmember Frutos.
Okay, let me start real briefly. Going back to Wednesday, May the 4th, I attended the Los Angeles County Civil Brand Commission for institutional inspections. Then on Thursday, May the 5th, I attended SCAG's 2022 General Assembly. Saturday, May the 7th, I attended Burbank Fires Service and Police Service Day. A lot of folks showed up, a lot of folks. Wednesday, May the 11th, I attended the Board of Library Trustees meeting. Nothing to report back to the council. I did present a certificate on behalf of our mayor at the 10-year anniversary of Tequila's Cantina and Grill. They've been now in Burbank for 10 years. Congratulations to Patty and Carlos. And then on Thursday, May the 12th, I joined our vice mayor as he did a ribbon cutting at Blue Space Interiors, ribbon cutting and grand opening. Then on Saturday, May the 14th, I attended with the mayor, vice mayor, and Councilmember Springer, the Boys and Girls Gala, honoring our supervisor, Kathleen Barger. On Monday, May the 16th, I attended the BWP building dedication for Mr. Ron Davis. And then later on that evening, I attended the Burbank Sustainable Commission. I do have to report to the council that a member came up to me and wanted to advise the council that they were a little bit disappointed that the council voted now 2 years ago the single-use plastic ban, and they feel that, no disrespect to staff, this is just a comment from a member that I need to report out, that basically it's so slow and the commission's getting frustrated that they wanted something should have been done by now because it was approved 2 years ago. And so I wanted to report that out. But in defense of city staff and being at the meeting and reporting back objectively, is that staff said that because of the new mandates with the composting, that city staff working with the consulting firm that was originally, we budgeted the money set aside for the single plastic use ban, staff's recommendation was to the commission, take a couple steps back because we're going to have to incorporate it together because there's an educational component because we're still meeting what's basically the state mandate for your table scraps. So instead of doing the single ban plastic bag now and then 8 months later, now we've got to do it, they're saying financially, educationally, working with the business community is let's do it together and let us formulate a policy to go to council for approval. But I did need to report on that. And then I also wanted to report that our commissioner, Heather Robb, she will be stepping down. She's now a very proud mother, and because there's no longer any Zoom and they have to be there in person, and her family situation for right now, she is stepping down. I wanted to thank Heather for her hard work and contributions to the Burbank Sustainable Commission, and that's all I have to report.
Councilmember Frutas,
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question in regards to that one person that came to you with that concern.
Yes.
Was this a personal concern, or was this a commission
This was
voicing that concern?
This was a commission concern. It was an agendized discussion, and she pulled me aside after the meeting and she says, "Bob, can you please advise the council?"
So staff knows about it as well?
Yeah, they were present during the meeting, and she voiced her frustration to staff.
So staff should be reporting that to us?
It should be in the minutes of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilman Springer?
Sure, thank you. I attended an event at Horseman School Early Childhood Program. There was a planting morning, so that was a nice little event. And I attended Police and Fire Service Day, and it was so extremely well attended. I think there was just a lot of pent-up demand to get out, and I think BPD and the fire department, they just did an excellent job. I Zoomed the SCAG San Fernando Valley Housing Policy Leadership Academy course, along with Maribel Leyland and Alex Arciniega. And we're actually developing policy, through this course. A Zoomed Park Board meeting and a community garden meeting. They're still working very hard on that. And a Southern California Armenian Democrat candidate meet and greet Downtown Burbank Arts Festival, also very well attended, and the Boys and Girls Club Gala honoring Catherine Barker, the BWP building dedication, and last night, the Burbank Transportation Commission meeting. Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was at the Police and Fire Service Day. My son had a blast. He always gets all of his the swag. Yeah, all the swag. I don't know how many plastic fire hats he has now. So, and then on May 9th, I tuned in to the Zoom for PFLAG, for Burbank PFLAG. And on May 10th, I actually was at the Belmont Village senior home for a little meet and greet. The residents there were concerned about some local issues. Number one, of course, was crime, and we talked about, what was going on and what was happening in the city, and I explained to them, you all live in a building, so you don't have to worry about porch pirates, but that was like their number one thing they were talking about. But no, it was good. It was good to hear concerns from the residents. On the 11th, the 12th, the Blue Space Interiors, which was really great. It's this commercial. They do furniture for commercial space, and they basically just sell it all together. You do, if you have a blank interior, they'll do the walls, they'll do the desks, the chairs, everything. One-stop shop. So it's a nice business to have in Burbank because we have a lot of those offices here, and they're going to be utilizing that. Saturday, May 14th, with Councilmember Springer, I attended the MAVE March. So that morning, a group called MAVE, Motherhood Alliance, Equity, Village, and Empowerment, put together a march along Chandler. It was directly in response to what we're hearing from the Supreme Court and then those leaked documents. And it was really well attended. I was surprised at the number of people who showed up, and I think people are really hopeful that Burbank and the rest of California is not going to go the way some other states have gone. So that was encouraging to hear from those folks there. The Boys and Girls Club Gala was that night. I missed the dedication for Ron Davis on the 16th because I was attending an event downtown in downtown Los Angeles called the Poor People's Campaign. It's this national movement to inject morality and ethics into our politics. And so there's like this discussion about how our politics has become so very legal and so very technical. And it's this big, they're calling it the Poor People's Campaign, and it's helmed by Reverend Dr. Barber, who was actually a guy who marched with Martin Luther King way back in the day. And he's in his 70s plus, almost 80, and he's still touring the country and talking about this. And it's like, hey, we need to, policy and laws should be based on morality. What does your heart tell you to do? It was interesting. It was a very interesting conversation. A lot of people were down there. And and I had to miss the Transportation Commission meeting that Mr. Kursky was talking about, so I'm gonna go watch that later. That was my week.
All right. Great, thank you. Let me weigh in. I attended the San Fernando Valley Service Council meeting. I also was part of the LoSAN Executive Committee. I was appointed last month to the Executive Committee of the LoSAN Board. So now I have not only the board meeting on a monthly basis, but we also have the Executive Committee on a monthly basis. So thank you for that. I checked in with the local staffers of the governor's office. We had a conversation of what Burbank needs are and what can the governor's office do to help us here in Burbank. It was almost like 45 minutes, so that was quite a bit. Let's see, I presented a certificate to Mr. Jerry Moss. He 100 years old. He attends the Burbank Temple Emmanuel. And, I mean, he doesn't look at 100 at all. I mean, he was very chipper and, yeah, he was amazing. So happy birthday to Mr. Moss. I also, like it was mentioned, I attended the Boys and Girls Gala honoring our Supervisor Catherine Barger. Let's see, also attended the building dedication for Mr. Ron Davis. It was good to see him there yesterday, and Cheryl, his wife, as well. And a lot of people have come back. They're retired, that worked with him along the way, came back and was part of the dedication and honoring. And I just want to remind my colleagues and people that are listening and staff, tomorrow, Ellen DeGeneres is the show that I'm presenting her. We're making May 18th, Ellen DeGeneres Day. So it's going to be on TV, and it's awesome. Just remind you, if you have free time, I'm sure you don't look at me, but anyway.
Do you dance on the show with her?
Oh, I do it all with her.
Okay.
Yeah, we go up and down this, yeah. No, I didn't do all that. So now is the time for the introduction of additional agenda items. Do members of the council have any items to introduce? Going once, going twice? Okay. Let's see. We now adjourn the meeting to Tuesday, May 24th for a joint meeting in the council chambers at 275 East Olive Avenue, second floor. The public may view the meeting online or on television and will be able to provide public comment in the following 4 ways. In person for general public comment, public hearings, and reports to council. By calling in directly to the council meeting at 818-238-3335 to speak during the general public comment period and public hearing items only. Number 3, by leaving an e-comment on the city webpage. And number 4, by emailing the city council directly. So once again, thank you very much, and we're adjourned.